All right, looks like we're live. I'm here with my two sidekicks, the Knuckles and Tails to my Sonic, Artistic Layman, and Undertow.
Are you?
No.
And,
no.
No. Are you really?
And
is anyone?
How does anyone know anything?
How can our eyes be real if our co-hosts aren't real?
And Antidem's with us too this week.
Hey, are we still making America great again? I'm kind of unclear on that at this point.
Oh, no. It's time to crucify Trump and then go and beat off to anime girls.
Okay. I would say we're making it better. I don't know if we're quite making great yet, but I'm not.
Should make a hat that says "Make America Pretty Good Again."
Make America salvageable again.
I'm gonna get a red hat that says it's still a step up.
Make America tolerable again. There you go.
Yeah.
We need to start getting permutations of that, like the libertarian snake. I specifically requested the opposite of this snake.
The one where he's got the ball gag in his mouth and it says, "Please tread on me." Okay. So there's a bunch of topics I want to cover this week, and I'm sure I know there's some stuff Antidem wants to bring up too. There's the Easter killing stuff. I want to talk on that. The stuff with Moldylocks, the Bill O'Reilly story, and then of course there's all manner of terrorist shootings here and there because of course there are.
Yeah, just sprinkled on for flavor.
Yeah, just here and there. I mean,
Yeah,
it's as notable as a rainstorm.
I heard it got pretty hairy up in Berkeley.
When that fist collides with you and you realize gender is not a social construct.
There's jokes in this episode.
God, can you imagine how she smells? And the sad thing is she's a good-looking woman under all that fucking mange.
Have you seen the pictures of her like before she went to Antifa?
Yes, she's a good-looking woman, or was, I should say.
Well, I mean, if you see pictures of Rachel Dolezal before she went crazy, she's not like, a perfect 10, but she ain't half bad looking.
Antifa, not even once.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'll never get sick of seeing him punch her either. Just bam. The last time I have enjoyed seeing a woman get punched that much was, you remember that chick from the Jersey Shore, Snooki?
Mm-hmm.
There was this clip of her hassling some dude at a bar, and this big muscle-bound Jersey dude, and he punched her, and she twirled and then fell straight down like a sack of shit that she is. And this guy was a big, muscular dude, and I mean, he had better form than this guy. Like, it was straight as an arrow, right across her face.
Last time I enjoyed seeing a woman get punched so much, my sandwich was a few minutes late.
Well, by the way, I don't know if it's real or fake screen cap because, I've tried to give that habit up. But somebody supposedly put the video of it on Pornhub and used her porn name, like her porn actress name.
Yes,
right?
They did.
And said, like, her first fisting scene.
Yes. And it
there it is. Look at that.
Ooh.
That's not even the complete gif because I remember she kind of twirled and then she just fell straight down. Fuck you.
What's extra great is you can tell he breaks that guy's nose on the way to hit her.
Yeah.
Bam.
And you know what's funny? I remember my one buddy was all like, "Oh, I don't like Snooki," and but I mean, you shouldn't hit a girl. And I remember shocking him at the time. I'm like, "Fuck that! If I say Obama should give him the Medal of Freedom." I want to thank you on behalf of America. Punch Snooki in the face. So yeah, she had to go Moldylocks. She had to go fund me. I got punched in the face. Give me money. I guess hospital bills or something. Whatever. the hospital had to cut all that mangy hair off of her to get to like when a vet finds a stray animal and they got to shave it bald.
Remember
I'm coming down to the hobby shop. We got some X-Acto knives. We'll get right in there, get it all cleaned up.
Remember that old Bugs Bunny cartoon where he fights that hair monster and he finally comes out at the end with the clippers and like at the end there was nothing left except sneakers.
Yeah,
And he's like, oh no.
The big red hair monster. Oh, man.
What was his name? I wanted to just call him Sweetums for a minute, but then I was like, wait a minute, that's the big hair monster from the Muppet Show.
Oh, Rudolph.
I think they just
Rudolph.
Oh, wait,
That's
he had a name?
Yeah, his name was Rudolph. Yeah, I knew our resident animator would know that.
But yeah, the Moldylocks, as she's called, and I mean, look, fucking dreadlocks are, especially if you're white and you're. I mean, I hate to sound like cultural. You know what? Actually, that's what it was. This brave man was standing up to this woman's cultural appropriation for wearing dreadlocks. How many likes can he get?
He was standing up for our culture, man.
But no, seriously, like.
Hey, equal rights means equal fights.
I told her to get rid of the
Equal
hair.
rights
It's a
and
symbol
equal
of my
lefts.
people. And she did the hair anyway, so we sent a neo-Nazi to punch her, man. It was wonderful. Nothing came back to us. Not a thing.
Seriously, if I was like a boss and somebody came in to interview and it was a white person with dreadlocks, I'd be like, I'm going to stop you right here just to let you know you're already at one strike. Yeah, you could maybe salvage this, but you're. And no, the guy says, or supposedly, I think the guy said that like it's so hard because there's so much fucking information. But supposedly the guy was like, I didn't even know it was a chick, and I'm like, I don't blame you. It's like a dog; you have to turn her over to see.
He was probably saying, if I had known it was a chick, I would have hit twice as hard.
And I do love the guy in the background with the Jesus will judge you jacket. It's like, Jesus will judge you, but only after I'm through kicking the shit out of you. There's
Jesus will judge you, and I'm about to arrange the meeting.
See, what this clip doesn't show you is the fact that she was running at the guy with the Jesus will judge you shirt. And this was a defensive move.
She was throwing bottles and shit like that. I mean, look, Antifa.
Earlier, she was throwing firecrackers into mailboxes and shit.
Look, I'm not gonna lie.
No.
Let's not mince words here. Antifa is a domestic terrorist organization. All right, and if I see somebody dressed up in Antifa gear, if I have a weapon on me, I'm pulling it out. All right, that's just basic defense.
Well, I saw a wonderful video where a bunch of guys who were clearly, Pollax, people from 4chan, they were running in. One of them had a Captain America costume on, and he was throwing a shield at people. Several others of them had capes. One of them had an American flag cape. One of them had the Libertarian flag as a cape. And what they were doing was, and it was so amazing. They basically got the line to break, and the Antifas were backing up and running away. They ran up to one of them, pulled his mask off, right? Then dropped their cape and put his mask on. And all the other Antifas suddenly thought, oh, there's one of them, and attacked this guy who they had just demasked.
Oh.
And then they just start walking away with the other Antifas, and then they sucker punch one of them and run back and grab their cape again. It's brilliant.
That's some Bugs Bunny stuff right there. No, it's duck season. No, rabbit season.
That's what is so amazing about this is like we have every advantage.
Oh yeah, like I think I said these exact words on here before, and I'll say it again. To you lefties, you have no idea the fire you're playing with. You exist because right wingers allow it.
Well, one thing I just posted on Gab is like, no, what Berkeley proves is the cops aren't protecting us from you. They're protecting you from us.
Yeah. I mean,
What's that
And
one
what-
guy from comic books? You know, I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me.
Yeah, right.
exactly.
Yeah, the Sean Spicer's motto. But one thing I just posted in the, you should just start every press conference with that. One thing I just posted in the internal chat is so Antifa out in Arizona has something they're calling the John Brown Gun Club. And a bunch of them went out and got guns, and they posted this video of themselves out at a shooting range. I think just one that they'd set up in the middle of the desert. And
Isn't it illegal?
well, and not really in Arizona, but
I guess you guys still have cowboys out there, so. Yeah.
okay. First, among other things, seeing these fat, dreadlocked, skinny jeaned doofuses out there with cheap crap AR builds, $500 AR builds, and they're standing there like in a row, like it was the freaking Battle of Saratoga, sort of forming a firing line, firing in volleys at these paper targets. They set up paper targets with Pepe painted on them. And these idiots, I mean, these are 25-yard targets, and they're standing there with ARs, and they're not hitting anything.
Oh my God! Really?
I mean,
All right. As somebody who's put a hole through a dime at 200 yards with an AK-47, and I'm very proud of that. You guys are losers.
Yeah, I can get everything in the black ring at 25 yards with my snub nose 357, and these dudes can't do it with an AR. And so no, and what they're asking for,
they couldn't do it with a tactical nuke. All right.
That's okay. They know how it works. All they have to do to get one of those is kill 25 people, right?
Yeah.
First,
that's when the kill streak kicks in.
First, they're asking to get themselves killed. Second, they're giving the Trump administration a perfect excuse to do to them what they've done to the Ku Klux Klan and to all those militias back in the 90s, where, you walk into a meeting and 95% of the people there are in one way or another on the FBI payroll.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's just bad.
Well, I mean, if Sessions can ever fucking stop hassling potheads and fantasizing about going after WikiLeaks long enough, I'd love to see him actually really go in and just shut down shit like Black Lives Matter and Antifa. And it wouldn't take
shut
a lot.
it down.
Yeah, oy vey, shut it down. I mean, it wouldn't take a lot. You could just go in there, and there's any number of fucking reasons you can just arrest the fuck. In fact, Sessions, if you really want to go arrest potheads, I'm sure Moldylocks stunk a pot. Why don't you go after her? I mean, for God's sakes.
Well, so much for peace and love. It's thing after thing after thing that they claim that they're for when they're the underdog, and when they've got power, they don't, or the other way around. They were all about the First Amendment 50 years ago, and now they're not. And they were all about, nobody should have guns 10 years ago, and now they're out buying guns and posting videos of themselves.
They were nobody should have guns 10 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Howard Dean.
Nobody should have guns 10 weeks ago.
Just to show you how mainstream it is with the left, Howard Dean, that's mainstream Democrat. You know what I mean? He was on Twitter saying, hate speech is not protected by the First Amendment.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, yes, it is, you communist faggot.
Well, that's what I've been saying. Is like,
I'm sorry. Could you go back to that picture of the hipsters with the guns again?
Oh,
Yeah,
so
Look at how they're holding these things.
I don't know if it was that picture, but somebody pointed out, who probably knows considerably more about guns than even I do, but that one of these pictures, they had fucking airsoft guns, that they just took the orange shit off the end.
Oh, you can tell, yeah.
This guy with his finger up on the wood furniture there. His finger is nowhere near the trigger there.
That's some real trigger discipline he's got.
I mean, I guess. But
also, why is he wearing mom jeans?
Yeah, these guys, and nice tactical vest for no reason at all. I mean, it's Antifa goes mall ninja. You guys need to get onto /K and lurk more.
Yeah, seriously.
But like you were talking about with free speech, I mean, the First Amendment and the principle of freedom of speech exist only to protect unpopular and controversial ideas, because popular and uncontroversial ideas don't need protecting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read the Bill of Rights, and absolutely nowhere in any of it do I see the phrase "unless it's really important."
Guys, this is so important, though.
The freedom of speech, unless you really, really hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah.
Not be infringed upon.
Well, that's the thing. To the left, according to these guys, rightist speech is violence, but leftist violence is speech. And these idiots are going to get somebody hurt, maybe themselves, maybe someone else, but
No, 100% themselves.
Yeah.
Anybody that they hurt is just going to bring the hurt back on them tenfold.
Yeah, look, the left. I mean, Forney a couple months ago was all like, "Oh," and that's because he was listening to too many of the fucking keyboard warrior anime Nazis, and I can understand why that would disheart you. But he was sort of like, "I don't know if the right could even win a civil war," and I thought, "Come on, dude." Like, maybe it's because I live out here in God-fearing K-type redneck country, all right? But trust me.
You think Philadelphia is redneck country? Son.
No, I don't live in Philadelphia.
I have
the
kids in my class. Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, but
Pennsylvania. I'm sorry. I always say Philadelphia when I mean Pennsylvania. Why do you have two really long things that start with P?
I don't know. I didn't find.
I know. I got one of those, but
aside from the fact that William Penn founded the state, I couldn't tell you.
That's what they say about Pennsylvania is it's Philadelphia on one end, Pittsburgh on the other end, and Alabama in the middle.
Yeah, I'm in that nice little Alabama section. And let me tell you something. I'd love to see Antifa try and do their shit in southern Lancaster County. I would love nothing more.
Yeah, again, all of these, I mean, look at those three clowns. These Starbucks studying with their MacBook Pro motherfuckers who, they think that they're going to last against stout country boys who throw hay bales around 5 hours a day and have had hunting rifles since they were 6 years old.
Yeah, look, the left exists because the right allows it. It's simple. For them to think, and they've been fantasizing about civil war these last few months, for them to imagine that they could defeat the right in civil war is like a flea imagining it could kill the dog in a fight. First of all, flea, you need the dog. Second of all, no, you can't.
Notice every place that the left actually has taken over by violence, or most of them, it's someplace that was already weakened by some kind of war that had gone on before. Russia was just coming out of World War I. China was just coming out of World War II. Korea was just coming out of, World War II also. All of these places where a lot of the people who were nationalists had gotten themselves killed in another war, and the communists were the only people left. So yeah, or in some poor third world shithole like Cuba or Nicaragua, where there's a new generalissimo taking over every other week anyway. Yeah, so sorry, the idea that these fags are going to be able to go out into the country and tell people what's what, make sure your life insurance is paid up.
Yeah. I mean, by all means, as I like to say on here, I've made my peace with God. Let's dance. I am by no means concerned.
And sorry, Yoke Khan in the chat is saying redneck country wouldn't matter in a civil war. Oh, redneck country, you mean that place where they grow all the food, create all the energy, and where all the water comes from?
And, increasingly where all the factories are?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, bud, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, without the cities, where would we go for overpriced food and merchandise? I mean, we would be starved here for fancy sneakers.
Yeah, look,
we would. Oh my God! You know, I wouldn't.
Yeah, look, I live in.
I'd be sad about not being able to get new fucking Nintendo T-shirts, but other than that, I think I'd fucking.
Amazon would still be shipping though.
That's
I mean,
true.
let's be real. Nothing can stop that machine.
Yeah, I live in Silicon Valley, and I'll tell you, Silicon Valley will feel the need for food, water, and energy long before the rest of the country feels the need for new iPhones.
Yeah, where will I get all the smug?
You don't need to get any smug. We got all we need, bud.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've had some of the best food in my life in New York City. All right, but
But it all came from somewhere else.
yeah, but they just arranged food that areas like mine grew. Okay.
Yep. But hydroponic farming, Chris. But
I forgot.
vertical farming.
I
Remember,
forgot. That's gonna
Great prophet of the future movie Bob told me so.
Yep.
Take a shot.
Hey, I didn't even bring them up. But since you brought them up, let's talk about them for an hour. All right. So the other story I wanted to get on, Bill O'Reilly getting fired. Now,
Bill O'Reilly getting fired 10 years after that would have been politically relevant.
yeah. See, I'm kind of. Here's the thing about Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly's a big fucking nothing. All right. He always has been. The reason Bill O'Reilly became as big as he did was he was in Fox News on the ground floor of it in the 8 o'clock slot. Virtually anybody would have become huge, and starting on Fox News when it first premiered on the 8 o'clock slot. That guy was the definition of right place at right time.
Mm-hmm.
That said, Bill O'Reilly is kind of a jackass. He's, he doesn't really know what the fuck he's talking about half the time. Personality-wise,
Tide goes in, tide
shitbag.
goes out. You can't explain that.
Yeah, he is every bit as a shitbag, personality-wise, as Keith Olbermann. The only reason Keith Olbermann might seem like more of a shithead to you is because his politics are stupider. That's it. All right,
And
that's it.
In a way,
Take politics out of the equation. They're basically the same man, and I think that's why they hate each other so much.
This is actually, I think, good news because O'Reilly is an artifact of that Bush era.
Oh, he is neocon to the butt.
the
We
conservative era.
lose
Conservatism.
nothing of value losing O'Reilly.
Yeah,
I'm kind of sad that, here's the thing. I think most of those sexual harassment claims are legitimate because he just seem like that kind of guy.
Oh yeah.
I don't know that this one was. I think this one was a bit of a setup. But there's two things here. Bill, they were able to set you up this way because of your past mistakes. And here's the other thing. And I realize there's talk that Fox News just wants to get out all the pro-Trump people. And there might be something to that. But also, no matter how good at your job you generally are, you really tend to piss off your boss when you keep making the same fucking mistake that he has to clean up for you over and over and over again, particularly when it's a very, very avoidable mistake. Like, Bill, just stop pulling your dick out. All right? Just stop doing that, and we wouldn't have this problem. So, I would have fired him too, regardless of how much money he's making, because it's like, I'm tired of making these women go away, Bill. Just stop doing this.
Yeah, I'm running out of shovels.
Yeah, we're running out of
landfill space.
I mean, look, the whole reason the whole Clarence Thomas thing blew over when he got appointed to the court was the only incident anyone could find of anyone accusing Clarence Thomas of anything like this. It wasn't a pattern that you heard of over and over and over and over again. And it is with Bill O'Reilly.
Oh yeah. I think oddly enough, this last one was probably bullshit. That said, they certainly all weren't. All right. And yeah, this guy is a shithead. I mean, I brought up Keith Olbermann, but one of the perfect examples of what a shithead Bill O'Reilly was he had this rule on his radio show that no one listened to, that you weren't allowed to mention Keith Olbermann, because this was right at the time when Olbermann was at his height and nipping at Bill's heels. and somebody called in and mentioned him, and Bill O'Reilly was like, "We traced your call, and I'm sending Fox News security guards to your house." What do you think? Like,
No, you're not.
he said that though, and he's like, "It's like you're not Mr. Burns. This isn't The Simpsons. You can't be doing shit like this, okay? You certainly can't be saying you're going to do it on the radio."
I've traced your phone call, and I'm sending private security to your house right now. I suggest you hang up the phone.
I prefer the hands-on touch you only get with hired goons.
Send them frickin' sharks with frickin' lasers.
Freaking laser beams attached to their foreheads, all right?
By the way, if you want your excuse to feel old for today, that movie turns 20 years old next month.
Wow.
I do not care because I didn't see it until it was already an old movie.
Well, it's good. You damn kids. You get off my lawn.
You know how old I was when it came out? 4.
I was going to say, what, -3? I am fucking old. God damn it. I'm so old, I've had to recently graduate from high school girls to college girls. And I got to say, I'm not happy about it. I thought I had a few more years, but...
You know, you remind me of an uncle of mine, and he would, years after he was going to college, he would still go to parties with college-age girls and stuff there. And he sat down one day and asked me, you know, Undertow is you know, insert my name. Is it okay for me to still be going to these parties with the college girls? And I said, you know, stick with the elementary schoolers for a couple more years, and then you can go to the college girls. Sorry, that's an old joke. Old joke. I'm sorry.
No lie. I'm at this sweet spot where it's like I gotta either be trying desperately to find the one girl my age without bastards, or I gotta date younger girls who, God bless them, are as annoying as fuck. So I really should have settled down before this. Don't make my mistake. MGTOW's bullshit, all right? Don't make my mistake.
Remind me what the rule is again. Is it half your age plus 7 or half your age minus 7?
Hey, it's whatever you can get away with, my man.
I just thought it was 18 is fine. Like,
well,
that's
you know,
the official rule, isn't it?
What's the best thing about 28-year-olds? There's 20 of them.
Classic. Oh, that's good.
Now broadcasting from the basement of Comet Pizza.
Oh.
I like the one pedo bear meme where it said, like, I like my women like I like my wine, 8 years old and locked in my basement.
Oh, boy.
Well, wait. I'm talking about pedophiles. So does that count as taking a shot on Movie Bob?
Ooh.
Not sure.
Oh, has he been confirmed
Judges?
yet?
Yeah, you have to take like half a shot, I guess.
Don't you know that Movie Bob is part of the asexual community? How can you be so intolerant?
Maybe we better change the subject before all of us end up with the party van parked outside our houses.
Yeah, I just had a Wi-Fi show up on my phone. It said FBI surveillance van. Is that bad? All right. Shit, what the fuck were we even talking about? Oh, Bill O'Reilly. Speaking of sexual predators.
Hey.
But yeah, nothing of value was lost here. I mean, what is Bill like? It's Bill O'Reilly is huge, but I mean, like if I tuned into a Bill O'Reilly episode, I think I'd bring down the median age by like 10 years at least. I mean,
yeah.
Does anybody but boomers give a fuck about this guy? You know, he rambles on with these basic bitch neocon right of center opinions. He writes these basic bitch history books that they sell at fucking Walmart. I mean, who the hell cares?
the right is in the middle of reinventing itself, and
he's getting left behind.
And he needs to be left behind.
Yeah.
And a lot of that also does feed into Trump and how he's a waypoint in the right reinventing itself, not the end point of it. But we've got to keep going, and we've got to change ourselves into something that we haven't been before.
You mean we've got to progress?
All right. All right.
The ironing is delicious.
I'll give you my Trump spiel. A lot of people have gotten really disillusioned with Trump over the last couple of weeks. And I understand why, but I think a lot of it is because they had expectations of what he was going to be that I didn't, because I've been around the block plenty of times. I've had plenty of politicians come and make me big promises. When Ron Paul ran for president 8 years ago, I said at the time, Ron Paul was the last hope of the republic.
Yes.
And when Donald Trump was running, I said, well, maybe he's the last hope of the republic, or maybe he's just going to give it another 20 years or so. The truth is, I think there's a lot of people out there in sort of the alt-right and the new right who in a way are weirdly sort of boomer conservative, in that they thought all we would have to do would be to elect Trump and then everything would be okay. That because, the whole boomer conservative thing is they want to find someone to vote for who will make it 1962 forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a big segment of the alt-right, the new right, who basically under the hood, under all the edginess, want exactly the same thing. Who thought that they could vote for Donald Trump and he would make it 1962 again forever.
Uh-huh.
And that was never going to be the case. Trump won't save the republic. He can't save the republic because the republic cannot be saved.
Yeah, it's already dead. Trump is the first step on something that may build a new one, maybe.
He's not an end. He's a means. He's not the end of the story. He's a waypoint. Mm-hmm. And we have to keep reinventing ourselves around this.
This chapter is the end of the first arc, right?
Yeah, that to me, what Trump was.
Stay tuned, and we'll get that guy that oh crap! Well, we'll get Griffith in the next chapter.
Well,
that was supposed to be a manga joke, but I forgot his name for a second. I cocked it up. Crapped out on
tunes.
Have you guys noticed how Trump has been president for 3 months, and it's hard to remember a time when he wasn't president?
Yes,
it's hard. I mean, Barack Obama seems like he was 30 years ago.
Yeah, I thought Trump had been president since I was 11 years old.
And it's hard to think back to those dark days of 2015 when it seemed like the leftist singularity was coming and we were all going to get crushed. Mm-hmm. And what Trump represents to me is breathing room. He represents time to regroup, to reinvent ourselves. As much as I hate to take my political strategy from the 80s G.I. Joe cartoon, if ever there's a channel to do it on, this is it. But I remember there was some point where Cobra Commander screwed something up and Destro walked up to him. And, Cobra Commander was like, yeah, it's no big deal. And Destro told him, you're an idiot because you've given our two enemies the two things that they must never be allowed, time and hope. And that's what Trump has given us. He's bought us 4 or hopefully 8 years to get the leftist juggernaut that looked like it was about to crush us off our backs long enough we can regroup. It's like the Spartans at Thermopylae.
I think
they held out the 3 days that gave the rest of Greece time to get their formations together.
I think the biggest next step, as it were, I mean, look, part of it is that Trump's not going to be able to do some of the stuff, whether he intends to do it or not. Some of the stuff he promised, he's simply not going to be able to do until he cleans house in a lot of these agencies and whatnot. He needs to. I mean, there were large sections of the government that were openly talking about assassinating this man.
Yeah.
There needs to be some house cleaning done before anything significant can get done in the swamp draining front, as it were. Whether he'll do it or not, I don't know. But the point is, his mere victory has changed the rules. I mean, we should already be looking at 2018, and I mean, it's not that difficult to become a member of the House, relatively speaking. It's every 2 years, and I mean, the House has always had the quirky people. Ron Paul was in the House. Dennis Kucinich was in the House. The House has always had the idealists in it. It has always had, it's always been closer to the people than the Senate by design, actually.
Yeah, it's the House.
I would argue
who represents the people.
I would argue, actually, originally it was a very brilliant design. The Senate originally was picked by the state legislators, and the representatives were picked by the people. So it was easier for the Senate to get bills started because when you're a senator, there's only 100 of you, and even less back then. And when you're representative, there's oodles and oodles of you. But then the House of Representatives always had could always kill the budget of anything. So the Senate had the gas and the House had the brake. I think that was an incredibly brilliant way to balance power right there. I mean, yeah, we've kind of thrown that shit out the window, but that's our own fault. I mean,
Well, something I posted on Gab a while ago is, the intent of democracy was to give us the government that we, the people, want. Instead, what we've ended up with is the government that a dozen or so huge megacities want.
Yeah,
and that's not
also
what
why
the founding
we
fathers
had,
intended.
That's why we had things like the Electoral College. That's why every state had every state had proportionate amount of representatives, but only 2 senators. There was balances even to avoid that.
Right.
I mean, at a certain point, be it monarchy, be it democracy, be it republic, be it some manner of form in between, people get the government they deserve. All right. And we're in the mess we are with the government because we've allowed ourselves to become a shittier people.
Yep.
I mean, even a king, even a dictator is just a man. He's not General Zod. If enough of the people are fed up enough with him, they can drag him out of the castle, the mansion, whatever, put him up on a meat hook and said, that's enough out of you.
Yeah, General Zod, more like General Zog.
But yeah, look, 2018 is what we should be looking towards. This momentum needs to continue. Trump changed the rules. He changed the rules of what a politician can be, what a politician's allowed to say. I asked this of people when I had them on the election night stream, like, how would you want to see people take advantage of these changed rules? And that's what people need to be thinking about. I mean, Cernovich has kicked around the idea of running as a representative. And while I have issues with Cernovich, he absolutely should. And that would even further change the rules in a very good way. So yeah, I have a lot of issues with Trump. I'm not as upset about the Syria thing because I think, and maybe this is my own wishful thinking, but I think he was playing the neocons and not the other way around. The North Korea thing, I mean, look, if ever there was a fucking case for regime change, having a fucking, batshit crazy nerd running a country full of nukes might just be it.
I don't think he's really running it.
Well,
let's be honest. It's probably just a cabal of generals at this point.
Well, sending in some troops, killing everybody at the fucking headquarters and telling South Korea, this is your mess now. Don't make us come back here.
Yeah. Also, South Korea, please don't make video games illegal. If you want to talk about a nanny state, you talk about South Korea. Good Lord, they are getting out of hand. They are seriously considering making video games illegal in a country where esports is the most popular sport.
Well, they're just desperately trying to get their men to fucking go outside.
Yeah. In a way, you can actually ask which Korea is worse. It's like all the ways that South Korea is fucked up, North Korea is the complete opposite.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just hand it over to South Korea and say, okay, look, it's yours now. but like a stern parent, be like, "Don't make us come back here." All right. Well, earlier this week, I know I talked about this during one of my weekday streams, but I know not as many people tune into that, so I'll go into it again. Earlier this week, starting Saturday, actually, Easter, my dad went out to, wanted to go out to Michigan to see the Ford Museum, and I decided to go with him because I don't like him driving that much. It's a 9-hour drive, and that's, that ain't even that easy on me, and I'm half his age. So I went out with him. He went to the Ford Museum, and then took a tour of the Ford plant, that kind of stuff. He's a big car guy, so the Ford Museum is actually really cool. It's not just cars; it's heavily Americana. You know what? Let me send you a picture here, Luke, and I'll have you throw it up. But there was one thing. They had like this area where it was like, the 20th century, basically through the years. And like 1983, they had a section on the video game crash. And they actually they actually had some of the E.T. Atari cartridges that they had dug out of that landfill. Yep. So I remember explaining to my dad, like, yeah, this was considered an urban legend for the longest time. And then
they actually found it.
Yep.
It was like an Indiana Jones expedition. Man, it would make a great movie if I
haven't seen the Angry Video Game Nerd movie, and I do like his stuff. I've been kind of meaning to see it, but I've heard mixed things.
It's certainly something.
Hang on a second. You know what? The easiest way to get this from my phone to my computer is to just send it to somebody on Facebook. So I'm sending it to you, Auntie Dam.
Okay.
Yeah, find it. But yeah, the museum in general was really cool. I mean, they got a lot of cars, but they got a lot of early, 20th century farm equipment and that sort of thing. Planes that Ford had a hand in building, that manner of thing. And they also have basically a recreation of the, little town, village, whatever that Ford grew up in. And so a lot of the original buildings are basically like moved to this little area.
Oh, wow.
And like they have the original building he built the first car he ever built in. And it's kind of notable because like he built this little car. And early cars, like there was no rules, basically. You know what I mean? It's wheels and a motor. And that's, there's no idea of what a car is at that point. So it's all manner of crazy shit. But like he built it in this little kind of shed, basically this brick shed. And when he was done building it, it was too big to get out the doors. So he just took a big old sledgehammer to the one wall.
Wow. And
busted a big old hole in the wall and had his buddies, because this is how a car was back then. Like 3 guys could carry a car out of this fucking hole in the wall. He had started 3 companies before, or 2 companies before Ford Motor Company, that both of which had failed because he just couldn't get enough money together to get them off the ground. But I don't know. So many people on, especially the alternative right, the new right, whatever the hell we're calling ourselves this week, they're far too romantic in their views of the past. It's very telling as I'm going through this village how, thanks in large parts to his own efforts, among other men, the world that Henry Ford died in was a much better place than the world he was born in. And, life fucking sucked. It was rough on the vast majority of people. And the simple fact of the matter is that I, as a basically lower middle class man, live objectively far better than kings did back then.
Mm-hmm.
In fact,
even those that were kangs.
Yeah, even kangs, and I mean, aside from maybe a harem of chicks, there's nothing they had on me, you know. And
Well, okay. There's two separate things though. There's what we could call industrial or scientific technology, and there's what you would call social technology.
Yes, and I was about to bring exactly that up.
Yeah. So while our industrial and scientific technology has gotten hugely better over the last 200 years, our social technology probably peaked right around that idyllic little village that Henry Ford lived in and has gotten worse ever since. Now, the real trick for the right is to figure out how could we get the social technology that worked back without having to sacrifice the scientific technology that we've got.
yeah,
And I don't think that's that hard.
there's certainly a lot to be learned from the past. There's certainly things we've forgotten. That's, by the way, the picture of the display they have of the stuff they dug out of a landfill there. But you know, I mean, I really hear people on the right like the industrial age was a mistake, and I'm like, really? Because you know, I like the fact that it doesn't require 12 hours of labor for me to make a shirt.
I remember.
Honestly, I hear from people on the right that fear, say, the robotization of jobs and stuff, but that's just a continuation of what mankind has been doing since we were a young species. We've always been looking like,
you know someone that Henry Ford put out of a job? Buggy whip manufacturers.
you know, I mean, now in theory, when like there's this one robot I saw out there that like on the back of a truck that lays bricks for the foundation of a house and does it in a fraction of a time that human beings could do it. In theory, that should make everything cheaper. Now we have a lot of usury in the market right now, which kind of fucks that up. But in theory, it's like, oh well, everybody would be stuck working crappy jobs. Yeah, but then a house costs a fraction of what it did. You know, I mean, a shirt used to cost a week's salary, as it were. You know.
Well, I remember seeing something that said the amount of work energy that is in a single tank of gasoline is equal to the amount of work energy expended by a medieval peasant in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it. And look, here's the thing. None of us have the Doc Brown time machine to do 88 miles an hour and go back and keep the Industrial Revolution from happening. Here it is, and debating whether it should or shouldn't have happened is at this point just stupid. The thing is, there have been a few restoration movements that have happened in human history where people have decided they made a wrong turn and they needed to go back to something that worked. But no restoration movement ever succeeds completely. And neither should it, because first, things change, and second, whatever failed about your system...
I'm on. Hello?
Hey?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Anthony was in the middle of a sentence.
Yeah, well, not to be rude, but we'll get to you.
So whatever it was about your system that caused it to fail such that it now needs to be restored needs to be corrected anyway. So we can take what was good about the past and we can say, okay, we made some wrong turns and we want to go back on that, but it will never be exactly the way it was before.
No,
and it shouldn't be exactly the way it was before.
And here's the other thing. It's not just that technology makes our lives easier. This is something I often remark with the Amish, and it's there's a certain level where they're dead inside. And the reason being is, what are the two things they have rejected? They've rejected basically any form of entertainment, and they've rejected, the arts, essentially, arts and entertainment, and they've rejected technology. The problem is those two things are the direct result of the divine spark in us, I would argue. We create technology not just to make our lives easier, but because we're driven to. Nothing about putting a probe on Mars makes our lives easier, really. But we do it because it's there, and we want to understand it. It's that saying, of why does a man climb a mountain? Because it's there. We have that urge to do it, and when you suppress that urge, and yes, obviously, you can entertain yourself to death. Obviously, technology has downfalls, but when you suppress that stuff because you're afraid of those downfalls, you are snuffing a divine spark in us.
Well, I mean,
You know
there's
someone the another type of person who suppresses those urges is the hikikomori. It's neat. It's somebody who just sits alone because I mean they only play when you hear the cliche of the the nerd who stays home all the person who stays home all day and plays video games and stuff. They're not playing video games because that's what they want to do. They're doing it because otherwise they would just be staring at the wall.
By the way, just you brought this up. Oh, so one of the most popular manga and anime series over the last 25 years, this series ran for 25 years in manga. It's called Oh My Goddess. And it ended, I want to say, a year or two ago. And, I mean, it started in the early 90s and it kept going and going. And basically, there's this guy who falls in love with this really perfect girl. She's basically an angel, and they move in together and blah blah blah, chaste relationship all this time. So like in the last volume of the manga, she's like supernatural, she's an angel. He finds out that basically God in this universe has been intentionally suppressing his sex drive so that he wouldn't want to have sex with her, and that she knew about it all this time. And of course, the time is compressed in the story.
Sure.
I guess the story only a couple of years have gone by, and for us it's 25. But basically, the story ends with him finally getting permission to marry her, and this artificial suppression of his sex drive getting lifted. So, like, he finally wants to do the deed with her. And I think that was the author of this manga sort of making a comment on modern Japan and saying, it's on the one hand, we don't want to be Jersey Shore. We don't want to be, ignore thought orders on the one hand. But on the other hand, when it's time to get busy, when the wedding's done and the guests have gone home and everything's all good, it's time. And the problem right now with Japan isn't too much sex; it's too little sex.
Yeah, and Arini has a great line where he says, that morality is often, directly between two extremes. It's immoral to be a slut, but if you're a married woman, especially, it's also immoral to be frigid.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. Look, what God's trying to do with us. And by the way, I'm in the middle of, I've got an audiobook of the Bible, and I'm going through it cover to cover on my commutes back and forth to work. And right now I'm in some of the really boring parts of like Leviticus and Deuteronomy, where it's this
numbers.
And then you'll take a heifer and you'll slit his throat like this, and then you'll do this with the fat, and over and over. And terrible. But one thing you'll notice is a lot of these Levitical rules are just common sense sanitary laws.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Stuff
circumcision is a big deal when you live in a dusty desert and you don't have running water.
Yeah, for as much as people pretend like the rules in the Old Testament on sex are these oppressive things, it's like when you really go through it, it's just this laundry list of like, don't screw your sister, don't screw the neighbor's wife, don't screw your dog, don't screw your daughter. It's like basically a very long way of saying, like, if it's not your wife, don't put your dick in it.
And even one of them is like, if you're in an army camp, the soldiers have to go outside the camp, dig a pit, and shit in there.
Yeah.
Like, mute your mic or I swear I will move your home and then raise you. And then I'll go to a parallel dimension and bounce on you.
But the point of it is, and a lot of what the basis of Christianity and the Christian view of the world and what made science rise out of that is there is a rationality to these laws that God gave us. There is a reason for them. Mm-hmm. And the laws on sex are, look, sex is a powerful force of nature, just like fire is. And fire, it can be a wonderful tool. It'll keep you warm. You put your food in it, you cook it up, you don't get sick after you ate it. It's a wonderful thing. But if it gets out of control, it'll kill you and everyone you know. The first caveman who wasn't careful with fire and burned his forest down and his tribe with it learned that lesson.
Yes.
Sex as a powerful,
implying caveman.
Sex as a powerful
segue.
Sex as a powerful force of nature has to be contained within certain limits, just like fire has to be. But once you're inside those limits, you shouldn't avoid sex any more than you should avoid fire.
Yeah, and
it's
that's
there
the
for
thing.
a reason.
That's the thing that was so and it was kind of a reminder of some problems I'd have with some of the uber traditionalists. And it's like, I'm re-listening to, because my dad, being a big car nerd, has told me all this stuff about Henry Ford since I was a wee lad. But it really is remarkable the difference this man made in the world. He didn't invent the car. He didn't even invent the assembly line, but he took a number of things and he perfected them, and he made the world a better place than he left it. And it's funny when they talk about when
some questions too.
Yeah, they talk about when, the unions came in and stuff. And Henry Ford was personally hurt when the unions came in. It almost killed him. It really sucked the life out of him, because this is a man who had, he paid his employees double what the competition was paying. $5 a day as opposed to $2.50 a day was the best you could get other places. He worked them only 8 hours instead of 10. He had safety procedures that were above and beyond what the law needed. Anybody on the manufacturing line could shut the line down with, pulling a lever or whatever at any time. Now, obviously, you better damn well have a good reason or you're getting walked out the door. But anybody could. He created housing for his employees. He educated them, recognized talent, brought it up in the company. He was the ideal boss. And yeah, it was a hard job by today's standards, but it certainly wasn't by those days' standards. People were lining up. People would suck a dick to go work for Ford. So when the unions finally came, he was very heartbroken by it. And it's just telling, there's so many people that want to sneer at anything and everything modern. And it's like, no, in a lot of ways, we have things very, very good. And we have we have great men like that to thank for it. And we shouldn't be sneering at that. Not in the least.
Then again, if we're talking about people who are woke to the JQ.
The other funny thing, they didn't mention this on the tour, but I heard this story and all. The company Chevrolet actually started by a mechanic that Ford fired because he was a drunkard and a womanizer, and Ford just couldn't stand to be around him. Chevrolet was a drunkard and a womanizer. Ford couldn't stand to be around him and just said, "Get your smelly French ass out of my company." and that's how Chevrolet Motors started.
And he said, "Screw you, I'll make my own car company."
With blackjack and hookers.
Yes.
Do you guys want to do this? Or?
Yeah, which one?
Which a long show. We'll get to you, buddy.
Yeah,
all right. No, I just wanted to make sure you knew I was here.
Oh, yeah, we did.
I see you.
Okay.
We knew. I just yelled at you a while ago.
Oh, you were talking to me? I apologize.
No, it's fine.
I
that was
myself,
partially yelling because of the door creaking very loudly, and partially making references to Panercoic 2012. If you even knew what I just said, you're a part of the club. Congratulations.
I didn't.
And you know all about being QPU aligned.
Yeah, you don't mind like intermittent racist comments from time to time?
Oh no, we're good.
Sparse throughout. Okay.
Intermittent? Hell, you can make them constant.
Is that the best you got?
Hell, you haven't seen our regular black caller yet, have you?
Oh, is Black James going to be on so we can talk about the Steve Stevens thing?
Probably.
I really want him on for that.
He always wants to be on, though.
Yeah, he usually
if he hadn't thought of it, we'll get him on and talk about it later. But anyway.
Right, so segueing out. Actually, before we segue out, while I remember, I'm going to go ahead and do the sponsor real quick.
Oh.
All right. So sponsor this week is Race Riot Apparel, where you can get some great Shitlord shirts. really good designs. And as I mentioned last week, he is looking for artists that he's willing to share profits with on shirts. You come to him to design, he'll distribute it from his show, split the profits with you. You get 40%. So go ahead and email him at racerioapparel at Gmail. And I'm sure even if you just follow the link, you'll see contact information there. He's easy enough to get a hold of. But yeah, email him. Put submission designs in the subject line, even if you have questions about it. But yeah, a lot of great shirts over at Race Riot Apparel. Constantly updating his stock, constantly increasing it. And I believe if you follow the link down below, there'll be a discount involved. Also down below, you'll see the tip jar, where if you appreciate what I do, tips are greatly appreciated. That helps me keep doing what I'm doing, and is especially appreciated with my current situation. So, the tip jar down below where you can send me some motherfucking shekels, that's greatly appreciated. Tips of any size. Yeah, and of course, as Luke's showing you, like, comment, and subscribe also helps this channel grow. So, swing your mouse over, hit the like button, that kind of thing. I don't know what Luke's doing now. Share on Facebook. Yeah, you can share it on Facebook. That's what he's doing. I was like, what's going on there? But yeah, if you're on the Facebergs, you can share it on the Facebergs. Also, there is a Bechtloff page on the Facebergs. Because honestly, I appreciate people that want to friend, Chris Bechtloff on Facebook, but I really got to keep that to a minimum because, I have, family that friends me on Facebook. So, I mean, I gotta be courteous to my normie family and friends. So, plus I never know if it's like a leftist that wants to just dig through. I've had to delete Facebook accounts before because people were just, when Facebook really started cracking down, I had to delete an account because it seemed like every other week, a 7th month or a 2-year-old post was getting reported. I'm like, what do you even want me to do? Go through, 3 years of posts and find everything every time I said faggot and delete it? I mean, I ain't got a week to spare.
As we say, or as we're told, rather, in training for being a teacher, ravioli, don't be friends on Facebook with your students only.
Oh, geez, yeah. Never accept coworkers either. Only after I left my last job did I accept some of those friend requests. But yeah, the Bechtloff Facebook page, check it out. I'm also on the Twitter. I'm also on the Gab. Easy enough to find. And like I said, there's the tip jar. If you want to bring any donations, that's greatly appreciated. And if you want to call in later in the show, message me on the Skypes there, as Cantwell likes to say, at the Bechtloff or just the Bechtloff or however the hell Skype works. All right. So a few weeks. Oh, go ahead.
Donate me some Bitcoin. Go to antidem.wordpress.com. I'm trying to build up some cryptocurrency. So send me your Bitcoin, your Litecoin, your Ethereum, whatever you got. But even if you don't, go to antidem.wordpress.com and read it.
What if I just got some of the rings from Sonic? Can I donate those?
I don't think he needs onion rings from the drive-in, buddy.
You don't know that. You don't know his life.
Nailed it.
All right. So a couple weeks ago, I put out the call for some various types of people that I'd like to call in and just explain their positions. I find it kind of interesting. Among them were creationists and flat earthers. And we got a couple of creationists with us today. So I'd just like to hear their position on things, their overall model of how they see things, and maybe ask them a few questions. So who we got here? We got Scuttlebug and Chris. How you guys doing?
What's up, guys? How's it going? I'm Scuttlebug.
Pretty
You
well.
can follow me on Twitter at Scuttlebugs. For anyone listening, I normally tweet about racist shit and orthodoxy. So if you are interested in either of those topics, subscribe or follow me. But man, I'm a fan of the show, and I hope this will be a fruitful conversation.
Oh, well, yeah, sure, by all means. I appreciate the kind words.
Chris, you wanna say
Well, I'm
something?
Chris. I was invited by Scuttlebug just now to speak about creationism. I'm also on Twitter at Trunchills, but I don't really. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really exciting intro, Chris.
Yeah.
I swear he has a great personality, guys. But bubbling with character. But yeah, I mean, I guess I can kind of get into my worldview. Unless I don't know, Chris, do you want to start? I'm just having a little bit of trouble with my computer. I can start though if you want. It's up to you.
Oh, I don't. I'd prefer you start.
Chris was here first, so he's had more time to be prepared. So he's clearly ready to go. Chris, take it away.
So all I know about this is that I was invited to speak about creationism, and that everybody in the chat is a theological evolutionist or a just an evolutionist, right? And they believe that
I don't know if they all are, but I know Chris definitely is the host.
Yeah, the belief.
Yes, I lean in that direction. I think anti-dem is more doesn't really care one way or the other.
I'm closer to anti-dem, but I am a theological evolutionist.
And I'm actually not sure on artistic layman, to be honest.
I'm technically a creationist by means of biblical literacy.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Okay.
Biblical literacy. Yeah. So I guess we'll be talking about whether it fits in line with the Bible and with.
Well, no, it's not even that. It's more.
He just wants to explain like why we believe what we believe.
No,
I just
want lay out your model a little bit here, because there's probably a lot of people that aren't even all that familiar with exactly what it is. There's certainly misconceptions, and then we'll just ask some questions, and that'll be it. That's
we're not debating. We're not debating anything. We're just curious.
Okay, good. Yeah.
I'm not interested in a debate. It's more, I don't get to talk to people that much without, somebody wanting to scream at me or throw a chick track at me. Or, I mean,
chick tracks are pretty great.
Better than punches.
Now, Elfstar, you will become a satanic priest. Roll the d20.
Yeah, there's like a new. Are you guys familiar with Pulpit and Pen? Those guys are have taken up where he left off.
Oh boy,
some pretty crazy shit. But anyway, I mean, yeah, I guess so. Let me kind of give you my position. I'm kind of indifferent towards 6-day creation or instant creation or basically what I object to is evolution, the theistic evolution. I am a young Earth creationist. I don't think. Let me go a little bit further. I think theistic evolution is inherently incompatible with Christianity. I can absolutely more than willing to explain that. With that said, I don't think people who subscribe to that view are not Christians. I just think that they don't understand the implications of theistic evolution. Now, old Earth creationism, I think, is kind of silly. I also don't subscribe to it. I don't think the Bible supports it or the geological record supports it, but I think it's an acceptable Christian view. But to make a pretty simple argument, I kind of just wrote out a couple things, and I'll kind of start higher level and then get a little bit more granular. So, I guess again, at a very base level, what is evolution saying? Well, from chaos, right? So from death, disease, destruction, all these things are actually the effects of the fall, which is what Christianity teaches. All confessions, at least maybe barring some few very modern ones, that from all those really evil, awful things, it's actually an inversion of the biblical creation story. Biblical creation story is that God created the earth and it was good, and through man's sin came all these awful, terrible, and evil things. And actually, I would put forward the position that if evolution is true, that if God is the author, as presuppositional to your position of these things, of death, disease, of cancer, of all these horrible things, of whatever. Then these arguments from Richard Dawkins and all these other fedora faggots are actually pretty strong. I think there's actually a pretty strong argument that we probably shouldn't worship this God if evolution is true. So that would be my first argument, just at a very base level.
It's kind of funny because I often say that there's a big overlap in views between, oddly enough, between the Fedoras and the creationists.
Let him finish first, Chris.
No, go ahead. You're right.
Yeah, it won't be like super long, or even long at all. So yeah, I mean, next thing, I think something that's kind of ironic is I'm here, and I actually assume everyone here is a Protestant, and Chris and I are Orthodox Christians who subscribe to this evil, horrible thing called tradition, and yet here we are defending biblical creation. So yeah, this is my second thought. My second thing is that I trust the Bible. I trust the Bible as the Word of God, and this is what the Bible teaches. On top of that, even if you were to say these are, well, they're somewhat allegorical, well, I don't see for that. And on top of it, actually, from the words, if we just go off the New Testament, we would be left with young earth creationism, because this is what Christ believes. He makes, I believe, multiple references that one would infer young earth creationism from. So yeah, just the Bible would be the second argument. I trust that it's the Word of God, and this is what it teaches.
Okay, well, let's just kind of lay out the model here. So a literal interpretation of Genesis, obviously. So I guess what I usually hear from creationists is roughly around 6,000 years old. Is how old the universe is?
I believe
I've heard as high as
6,000 to 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
I mean, to me, like, it doesn't, like, if it were 12,000 years old, I wouldn't be like really upset about it. But I subscribe to like about 6,000 to 10,000.
All right, a few thousand years old. 24, we'll say. All right. So, and that's not just the world; that's the universe at large.
Yeah, everything.
Okay. So the other thing, as I understand it, is creationists do accept evolution within kinds, microevolution, I guess they'd call it. But
yeah, of course,
sort of the idea that you have sort of a proto dog beast in the Garden of Eden, and from that we get dogs, wolves, foxes, coyotes, what have you.
Well, of course.
Okay.
There's no question about that. I mean, it's observable. I have no problem with that. I mean, black people are dumb, right? Like this is true. This is just observable reality, right? I won't deny that. But no, I mean, even to make a less controversial argument, like look at, there's different species of birds, different species of, or different types of dogs. Like I think would be really, really silly to reject microevolution. I don't know any young earth creationist who rejects microevolution.
Okay, well, a question I'd like. Okay, so it's basically, and I just use it because he's the most famous one. It's not to disparage. It's the Ken Ham model, as it were.
Okay.
And again, that's not to disparage it. That's just he's the most famous proponent of it out there. That's the guy people will most easily be able to look up.
No, that is essentially the model that I subscribe to. I mean,
all right, so
like, we might have some issues, but like, yeah, like, okay, there was one type of dog, and from that there were,
and I've even heard him say the same thing, and that's perfect. So some questions I have is, number one,
can I finish first though? Because I only have a little bit left. Okay.
Go ahead.
So I guess the next thing is I would just be like church fathers, and church history. So like a lot of times like evolutionists will push out this idea that like, oh well, like Augustine and all these other people actually didn't even think the Bible was true, or the Pentateuch was true. And it's just absolute nonsense. One of the things that almost the fathers are 100% consistent on is young earth creationism. None of them really puts forward anything that would even sort of be considered controversial to a young earth creationism. So, and again, I trust the fathers. I trust the wisdom of the fathers. And on top of that, I would go further and just look at all Christian confessions. We have so much things that we disagree about, but for like 1,800 years, the one thing that we all, or maybe like even into the 20th century, but really probably more 19th century is really when that type of ideas came around. Let's say 1,800 years, like what every single Christian confession agreed upon was young earth creation.
Well, there really wasn't an evolution. I mean, there was some limited ideas of evolution within kind, but there really was no full evolutionary model until about 200 years ago. I mean, to say they didn't believe in a theory that no one had really at that point. But no,
but what I'm saying is that the idea that the Pentateuch or that let's just talk about Genesis and creation, that this wasn't true or that this was allegorical was never even considered by any Christian confession. And you know, there were other creation myths that existed at that time. I mean, I believe I don't have a quote for you, I wish I did, but Saint Basil the Great actually mocks something kind of similar to evolution during his time, and he's a 4th century saint. So you know, there was.
Well, like I said,
thousands
I got a few
creation
questions
myths.
based on the model is pretty clear. Like I said, I got a few questions based on it.
Wait,
that I
let
never
me
get to ask.
let me finish one. Let me finish one thing. So, and,
Yeah,
and I guess the last
you've
thing
you've been offering counter arguments before he finished his thing, but yeah. So go ahead, wrap it up though. You're going off on tangents a couple times.
So the last thing is it's just like evidence. I think that there's a real lack of evidence for evolution. I think if the number of iterations that it would take for macroevolution to occur, the fossil record should be impeccable. We should be able to really map exactly how this took place. Instead, it's not only is it not great, it's like pretty much non-existent. Now, with that said, let me say one thing. Even if it were excellent, I would still be a younger creationist for all the reasons mentioned above. So yeah, that's basically my position.
Okay, well, like I said, it's more. I want to ask some questions about this model because it's questions I don't get to ask anybody. All right, so within the Garden of Eden, we have, I guess, the protos for the various kinds of fish, various basic kinds of birds, various basic kinds of mammals.
Right.
There are obviously now. It's very easy to look at certain animals and say, well, this animal very clearly seems to be designed. The problem is, though, more often than not, such and such animal seems very clearly designed to kill. The shark, for example, the quintessential version of this. You know, the shark is designed to kill things, to kill and eat things. To the extent that it is designed, that's what it's designed for. Creatures like that, what possible place would something like that have in a deathless world, in a world in which everything is essentially herbivore?
Right. So I think that's a pretty good question. I mean, I could answer it. I want to jump in because I kind of talked for 15 minutes. Actually talking about this previously. Kind of your intake there?
Well, I don't know the answer to this because prior to the fall, it would have been a deathless world even for the animals.
Yes, right. That's the model. So, like I said, prior to the fall in the evolution or in the creationist model, it's, you know, everything's plant eating essentially. You know, there's no death of animals of any kind. Then why is it, to the extent many of these creatures seem designed, they seem designed to kill? In other words, there's very clearly what appears to be a design to the overall structure of nature. The problem is death seems like a very, you know, important part of that design, the, you know, circle of life, as it were.
Right.
How exactly did it become such an integral part? And so what exactly was the layout beforehand?
I think that's actually a really good question. And since Chris kind of didn't want to answer, I'll try to. 2 models. I'm okay with humans were not death, and we're not the product of evolution, and that I'm not okay with animals evolving, but that there was sort of within the animal kingdom death, and there was this whatever what we observe today amongst animals. I think that's a compatible view within Christianity, not one that I would subscribe to. So what I would say is that these prototypes kind of evolved from a fallen world where death, disease, and destruction were brought in from the fall, and that's where you would see something like the shark. I imagine it's kind of changed substantially from its original form today, and that's why it would seem that it's been designed, but it's really, it's kind of a kind of a warped derivation of its original state. Another thing that's
where exactly would you say viruses come from? Because I mean, within a deathless world, this essentially half living thing, this parasitic thing, and then obviously there's certain microorganisms that, you know, are basically diseases. I mean, you know, a lot of Christians will say, well, disease came from the fall, but so much of what we call disease is essentially just life feeding
Right.
off us.
But these viruses take these viruses can mutate in like a month.
Right, but
Well,
the thing
yes,
is that the
but, I mean,
virus
what
never
exactly-
becomes like a cat or a
Yeah, what
frog.
exactly was the
That's
point of a
issue.
virus in the Garden of
Well,
Eden?
I mean, you do have bacteria in your gut, for example, or it could have been. I mean, you know, there's a lot of reasons why viruses exist. They exist in the gut. One example I can think of, but
Well, no, bacteria exists in the gut you know,
viruses.
I don't believe there's any
Yeah, I mean,
viruses that
It's
aid our
almost the same
digestion.
question as asking, say, why did God create the giraffe? Because I don't see why you could say there's a unique characteristic to viruses which makes them unworthy of existence,
Right.
but then not so much of anything else.
I
And
can answer
think
this
that-
one.
I think the argument in the line of reasoning is almost dangerously close to deism, to be completely honest. But yeah, I mean, I would say that viruses served a vital purpose, and due to the fall, again, they kind of at war with the world finds itself in. That's
Well, again, what
basically the
exactly
issue with
was the
viruses.
purpose? Because, like I said, I mean, I don't know of any viruses that aid in our digestion. Certainly, there are bacteria that does so, and other microorganisms. But viruses are incredibly much more predatory than any other microorganism. Some of them are barely alive themselves. They're almost something that has to feed. They are this bizarre, almost undead in the micro world.
I could take a shot at that.
Oh, go ahead.
All right. So God knows all things, including the future, right? Because if God doesn't know the future, then how did the prophets know the future?
That was going to be my explanation. Yeah.
So God created man knowing that the fall was going to happen, knowing that disease and all of this would end up spreading through the world once man left the garden, and therefore its presence, while it was held at bay in the garden, was already there, and later was sort of whatever was holding it at bay was released, and off it went. By the way, I'm not making a case for that at all. I'm saying that is an explanation.
That's
fair.
one
Sort of
explanation
almost.
that you could give. Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, these are questions. You know, there's not a lot of times I get to ask these questions to this model.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
I have a very different sort of, I guess not even really a question, but
Go
a
ahead.
position that I take. But I'll wait until you're done asking
Okay.
the
The
descriptive
other
questions.
question is, I mean, I look out into this night sky, and particularly if I have a telescope, I can see things that are, hundreds of thousands, millions of light years away. Our own sun is 8 light minutes away. You know, the known universe is a pretty big damn place, and why is it, if this universe is 6,000 years old, that I can see something that's more than 6,000 light years away?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of a Chris. You want to take a jab at this one?
Sorry,
Well-
repeat, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of like a pretty basic argument, and not like it's a bad argument. I just think it's kind of like one thing something you come across pretty often. Just as I believe that, like, we believe that God created the earth mature. Same thing about the universe, and that, interestingly enough, I actually grew up an atheist, and studying astronomy was one of the first things that made me think, like, do this. And I think that really the verse to this day has always stuck to me. And I can't recall it precisely, but the heavens speak the wonders of God. I think that's why God created such a vast and expansive universe. And obviously, God is capable of all things, could create a mature universe. Just one thing I would counter with something that's kind of interesting is that comets can only exist for like 8,000 years. We observe them.
Yeah, we've talked
so
about
they've
this
actually
one
had to
here.
create.
I-
So they've created like the Oort cloud, but I mean it's based off of nothing. Like it's just entirely hypothetical. Just like, well, we need this Oort cloud, or
Well,
otherwise
yes,
there's no
look,
explanation for comets.
everybody's model has to come up with, like, okay, there's areas I don't know. Here's a possible explanation.
No, and I should have prefaced everything with like, hey, I'm not going to be able to answer every question.
No, obviously,
like I'm not
so
sure
basically
about a lot
you're
of stuff.
saying is, in other words, the light between this star that I'm looking at, that's 100,000 light years away. The light between it and me was created, so that's why I can see it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, the problem I have with this is that's a little bit different than creating a mature universe, because Adam and Eve were created as adults, okay, and likely able to speak, for example, presumably Hebrew, but
Implying
they
they were
weren't
Jews?
created with false memories of going to school and learning things. They weren't created, like I said, with false memories. They were just created with inherent knowledge. To argue that the light between me and this celestial body was created, it sort of sounds like God has filled the sky with recordings, for lack of a better word, of events that never happened. Because if I watch, if tomorrow we record a star exploding that's 200,000 light years away, that didn't happen then in your model. That's just that's kind of a lie.
I could take that one too.
Oh, go ahead.
All right. The Bible is a chronicle of God's dealings with man, right? So it starts with the creation of the earth. So in the beginning, there was darkness. Well, where? I mean, does it begin with the creation of the universe, or does it just begin with the creation of earth? Well, before earth was created, it would have been pretty dark in whatever spot it would end up being situated in. So that's not an untrue thing to say. So it could be that the universe is a lot older than the earth is. I don't think that particularly contradicts the scripture.
Well, no, but like I said, the model that the universe is 6,000 years old kind of necessitates that the sky is filled with recordings of events that never happened.
Well, is it young earth creationism or is it young universe creationism?
Well, no, I mean, I subscribe to young earth creationism to include young universe. So I think I would have to kind of defend that position. Entirely sure I have a firm understanding of the question, to be honest with you.
Well, like I said, let's say, and again, let's just say there's a star out there we're going to call Charlie, right?
Yeah.
And it's 100 light years away. That means that, according to modern scientists, what I am viewing when I look at that star is that star as it was approximately 100,000 years ago. Just like when I see the sun, I'm looking at 8 minutes ago. That's just, light is not infinite in its speed. It's finite.
Right.
So,
Actually, it's fixed.
So I'm looking at something of 100,000 light years, or 100,000 years ago. And let's say tomorrow, this fictional star we've made up, Charlie, it just goes supernova, kaboom, big old explosion. We see it on the news, and this cool thing astronomers saw. The problem is that never happened in your worldview. That didn't happen. That was just some light created between me and this body. And also, it kind of begs the question, did that star ever exist if it supposedly blew up before there was existence? So am I not then looking in the sky at a recording of a thing that didn't happen? That almost sounds like the argument, which I know you're not making because it's an incredibly stupid one, but I've heard people make the argument that the fossils were put there by the devil, which is a stupid argument, and I know you're not making it. But it sounds like that kind of same thing where, like, the universe is built to deceive me in a way. Again, I'm looking at a recording of something that didn't happen. The sky is filled with pictures and images of things that possibly aren't there, or events that never occurred.
Of course, there always could be an error in measurement, right? I mean, everything we understand about about the universe.
Well, yes,
could be,
they're
could
there
be
in
completely
measurement,
incorrect.
but I mean, if we have the speed of light even remotely correct, you know,
Right.
I mean, obviously,
What he's saying is we might be wrong about the idea that it's completely fixed speed in space.
Right.
Like he's
Right.
saying that perhaps it might travel faster than what we have observed it to be the speed of light sometimes.
okay,
So
that's fair enough.
maybe it got a boost to get here.
I mean, would you say that's within the realm of possibility for God to do? Right.
No, certainly. But I mean, it's
Okay.
within the realm of possibility for him to, you know, do what I often hear is that, you know, the light between us and that was created. It seems out of character.
But because is the argument that you feel like it's deceptive? Is that that's kind of what you're saying? Is it almost that like God like seems to have tried to trick us, or maybe I'm
Yes, like I said, it's
Yeah, that's the gist of it.
okay?
it's
Yeah.
again a sky filled with, you know, images of events that didn't happen is what seemed, unless of course you're arguing that the speed of light has changed, which I don't believe I've heard creationists argue, but some of them might. But like I said, otherwise you have to accept the fact that most of what we observe about the universe is little more than an illusion.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure I have a strong answer to that. So,
Which, fair enough. It's
The
just
answer is that God created a mature universe.
no, but like, well, Chris, if you want to put forward an argument, go
well
for it.
again.
God created
go
a
ahead.
mature universe with everything pre-functioning as if it had been functioning for perhaps thousands or at least millions of years beforehand.
Well, yes, but again, there's a
Hey,
difference
hold up.
between
I
a
have
mature
a question.
universe.
I have a question though. If he created the universe as if it had been functioning for millions or billions of years, why not just create the universe and let it function for millions or billions of years?
Well, if you read the Bible,
I
you
mean,
can
he
see-
certainly could have, but that's just not what the Bible
Well,
teaches.
no, there's a difference between creating something in a mature form and creating an illusion. Like I said, he created Adam and Eve as
Okay, you're
adults.
getting stuck
He
on this
did-
point. They're already past that, Chris.
He did not give them false memories of a childhood.
No, of course, but
So yes, it's one thing to say he created the stars. He didn't cause them to form naturally. He just created them as is. But
Yes.
again, then he created pictures of things that didn't happen.
do you mean insofar as the stars were not exploding at that time period?
Well, no. Essentially, everything that I'm seeing that is more than 6,000 light years away
Yes,
is something that did not happen.
right. Yeah,
And presumably, you know, up until year 4, everything Adam and Eve seen at that point was something that did not happen because the star, you know, our closest star is about 4 light years away.
right. But do you think Adam and Eve understood that? Or do you think Adam and Eve just saw them as stars in the sky?
Right, that was the other argument I was going to make, but still, that could kind of like he could make the argument that like, well, still, it would make God kind of deceptive to modern man. Why would he do that? Well,
This is true, yeah.
you know, but it would, you know, it would still serve the purpose for the overwhelming majority of men who've ever existed, at least up until this point, until like the past.
Well, the purpose being the stars would show the glory of God.
Who's playing Super Mario or whatever?
Yeah, what is that?
My internet's down, so I'm playing the dinosaur game on Chrome.
Oh.
My
Gotcha. Okay,
bad.
so that's just on your speaker. I was it's like, wait a minute, is that me? That can't be me.
Okay, all right. Well, moving on. Does anybody else have any questions? And
I
then,
have
we're gonna
something.
move on.
I actually don't. I don't want to talk about logical or evidential questions here. I actually believe I have. What's the word here? I have a disagreement philosophically. You said early on that God would have had to have been the architect of death and violence and all that, and that's you can't. That was something that you wouldn't want to do, basically, right?
What?
I mean, I kind of butchered that. Earlier on, when Chris was asking about why sharks, like, for example, were made with sharp teeth and everything like that, you said, well, I can't believe that they were created specifically to kill, because that would mean that God was because death and all that death and disease and that sort of thing did not enter into the world until Adam and Eve sinned.
I think you're kind of conflating two arguments, but I think the
am I okay? Tell me which two am I conflating?
But it's okay.
No, explain, please.
Well, one was the response to Chris, and the first was just kind of the basic idea of evolution being incompatible with Christianity because God can't be the author of death, disease, destruction, things that are objectively evil.
They are they objectively evil?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why?
Without question. I mean, I don't.
But why?
Do you believe in evil?
Yes, certainly.
So,
here's the thing.
So
have you ever read the Silmarillion? I know that's a very weird question, but it's the expanded notes and everything that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote in the Lord of the Rings universe.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay,
no, I haven't read it.
You haven't read it. Okay. In it, there is a section where an elf and a human are talking to each other, and the human is lamenting the fact that, the elves don't die of old age; they get to live forever, and we have a limited time here, and we pass on. And the elf responds to the human, "That was not given to you as a punishment. I do not know where you go after this world, but I know that this is not your home."
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't.
Hold on. Let me finish my argument here. What the name of the tree in the garden that they ate from was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, not the tree of good and evil. I firmly believe that there was death and carnivores and diseases and that sort of thing in the world prior to man, so to speak, but we don't think of a lion as evil because it's an antelope. It has to eat, and that is what it does. The thing that is both our punishment and our reward is our sentience. It is not death and disease and pain that entered the world when we fell, so to speak. I mean, it is the fear of death, the anxiety of pain, and the abstraction. True evil is intentionally wishing these things upon others.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I think it's a good argument. I think that there are a number of objections. I think
Oh, you cut out there.
I can't remember the philosopher from Notre. Basically, he gets into best world possible hypothesis, and that's why he says, of course.
You mean the Sam Harris argument?
It's not Sam Harris. No. It's a Christian. It's actually a pretty good argument.
Well, that's actually an argument that Sam Harris uses for atheism. Are you referring to the argument that the worst possible universe is a universe where everything is suffering completely all the time? Therefore, anything other than that is a good universe, because Sam Harris uses that exact argument to argue for atheism.
No. He's a philosopher from Notre Dame. He's not a Catholic. He's actually a Protestant. And he's you could say a prolific writer, a prolific apologist. But basically, his argument is that basically he's making best world scenarios, and that we have free will, which means Hitler killed 250,000 Jews, but this is a much better world than a world with will, right? This is an objectively better world than a world without free will. So I think just to kind of rebut the one argument, would you disagree that a world would be much better if cancer didn't exist, right? Would you disagree with that?
Yes.
You would disagree.
Because here's the deal. If a better universe could have been created, God would have created it.
Yeah, and he did. And then through man's a better universe could have been created. A universe without cancer, that universe was created. And through man's sin, cancer and these other evil things enter the world. The second thing, just to rebut, I mean, you're going against Romans 5:12. I mean, the teaching is very clear here. that through sin, death entered the world. I mean, that's St. Paul. And this is pretty consistent teaching of the church and of pretty much all churches. So I think it's a pretty bold position to take, even from a theistic evolutionist position. I honestly haven't really encountered somebody who said that, that Adam and Eve were subject to death. I know that would be.
I don't as someone who is a theistic evolutionist, I don't believe that Adam and Eve literally existed.
But you don't. Oh, wow, that's really interesting.
I believe
Christ did.
Oh, certainly.
Okay, but then the question is, if that part of the Bible isn't true,
yes,
why isn't all of it
exactly.
And
why,
well, if that part of the Bible is true, why don't we still follow all the kosher stuff? Because yes, it's a new covenant. Yeah,
because in the Acts is very clear about us us no longer being subject to the ceremonial laws of the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one. I mean, that's just it's not what goes into a man that defileth him, but what comes out of him. I mean, Jesus canceled out. I won't say all of the Mosaic law, but he made pretty clear what we were keeping around and what we weren't.
All right. Well, that's a good verse to pick, because what comes into a man does not defile him. What goes out does. But he's not speaking of vomit there. He's speaking of words. He's speaking of actions. That is metaphorical.
And
okay, so there is metaphor within the text. Yes.
Okay, this is in excessive literalism is not a sign of intelligence. It's just a sign of autism.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. That's my point. That's exactly my point.
Christ was pretty plain about when he was speaking in parables and metaphors too.
Sure.
I mean,
sure.
We understand that was, I mean, something that wasn't like in 100% literal. I mean, if you try and apply that to every single word in the Bible, well, down that path lies madness.
Yeah, exactly.
And worse, down that path lies a fedora.
The way I like to argue it is that as technically a creationist myself, is until I get a hermeneutic that says I can believe in evolution but also believe in Genesis, I'll reconsider my position.
All right.
Do you mind if I ask you guys a couple questions?
Well, hang on. I got one more kind of nitpicky question about the model, and again, it's just it's the nerd in me that I have to overanalyze things.
No, that's fine. It's fine.
Within the model, okay. What before the fall, could Adam and Eve and subsequently the animals that were not subject to death, could they breed?
That's a lot of church fathers have written about that,
because that seems like a disaster waiting to happen without a fall.
So it's kind of interesting. So it seems that the earliest church fathers believe that the pre-fallen state that we didn't procreate through sex. I'm not entirely sure how we did procreate, but it wasn't through sex. Later on, you get some fathers who think that's kind of silly. I tend to believe that
regardless of how, I mean, would they procreate within a deathless world?
But again, that goes back to the idea that God created the world knowing that the fall was going to happen and set up everything, knowing that it would happen, knowing when it would happen. So all the stuff that sort of, came into the world after that was sort of already there because, it's like if I told you.
But no, see, here's the problem I have with that though. If you say, well, because the obvious problem, if there's no death and people can breed, is that even a perfect world is obviously finite. Eventually, given enough time, there's going to be just a layer of people. But here's the thing though, like if it was indeed a perfect world, doesn't it have to be a coherent system even if there isn't a fall? I mean,
Sure.
so
I mean,
it seems to me like there couldn't have been breeding before a fall.
No. Wait. You're not taking pre-knowledge into enough account. I mean,
No, I'm saying that, look, yes, he knew that there was pre-knowledge, but I'm saying this world, this system, before it falls, is supposed to be perfect. So doesn't that mean that it could, in theory, just go on forever?
well, what does theory matter? I mean, you know it's not going to. So what's the point?
Well, that does sort of get to the predestination versus free will question, which is a whole different bag of worms.
Right.
I think there's a Calvinist here, actually. And I hope
in
the
the
Calvinist
same way-
who's here is young Earth creationists, by the way, because the Calvinists I know are tough and strong Bible believers.
In the same way that I don't understand how God can be three people at the same time, in the same way how I don't understand how we can have free will and how God can know the outcome of everything, I don't understand how it could be, the book of Genesis could be figurative and the rest of it could, be more clear. However, I know that God gave us senses not just to squander them and to ignore them. He didn't give us intellects in order that we could be tricked by, the deception argument that Chris used earlier. And
I don't think
I'm
Chris
not.
used that argument, though.
What's that?
I think Chris used the deception argument.
No, he's
Like
like
God was
how the
trying to
light was
deceive us.
how the light was created halfway through. How he sees that as deceptive. I do as well. And I have studied the fossil record, and I have held in my hands, things that were claimed to have been from before, time immemorial and all that, where everything was under the water and all that. Which the thing that gets to me is, if you look at the wording of everything, God moved over the water.
What is it?
It's our guest.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all right. If you look at God moved over the water and then created the land and all that, that follows the timeline of how, the evolutionary model presents us with, where everything was at first water and then moved on to land masses sticking out above once coral reefs began to build up enough silt in one spot, and things became less even and all that. And I can't accept, I guess, that because how can I word this? I don't think that I think that the interpretation of death and disease as inherently an evil, quote unquote, that is where our inherent disagreement lies. Beyond interpretation of scripture, beyond interpretation of anything else, I'm not sad that I'm not going to live forever.
Well, wait a second. If you're a Christian, yes, you are.
Well, I'm not sad that I'm not going to live here forever, is what I'm saying.
Well, okay. One thing we need to make clear is the difference between moral and natural consequences, right?
Yes.
I mean, I can say, or as Moldbug puts it, every city in the world has the death penalty for stepping in front of a speeding bus. Right?
Yeah.
And, to quote Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven, deserve's got nothing to do with it.
Right.
So, God was pretty clear with Adam and Eve. Don't do this. If you do this, bad shit's going to happen. They did it anyway, and that bad shit happened. So is that a moral consequence, or is that just a natural consequence?
Why can't it be both?
Could be both.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't want to be on this topic all night, and you certainly could.
I think at this point we've reached the corner where we just have different.
Yeah. So I'm going to let the
points.
guest ask us some questions, and
Yeah,
then we're going to move on to some other topics.
Yeah, I got to run, but I do have some questions. So, all right. So if you accept, so I guess Undertow, you say you don't believe in a literal Adam and Eve. I mean, does that mean that you don't let me ask. I guess the question is two-part, and I'm honestly kind of shocked by that because I don't see how it can even sort of be compatible with Christianity. I mean, do you believe in a fall? If you don't believe in a fall, then why in the world did Christ come? If you do believe in a fall, how exactly did it happen? Yeah,
That's an excellent question.
My first question.
That's an excellent question, and I don't have an answer prepared for it, honestly, because it's never come into question for me. It's sort of stayed as more of a nebulous thing, whereas the fall of man, quote unquote, is as we gained our own self-awareness and we became different from the animals. Because the reason I am a theistic evolutionist is because I find it far more impressive that God would have built the universe so subtly, simply by setting up a few laws of physics in a certain way and then just letting it run. Right?
So do you believe in a literal Abraham?
I don't know. I've never, been to Israel, or I've never, it's never been relevant to ask that
What
question.
about a literal Jesus Christ?
I do.
I'm just kidding. Little fun jab there.
I know.
Well, it's kind of where do you draw the line? I mean,
And
after that,
I don't draw the line. I don't draw the line because what's important to me is the parts that I need to understand to live my life in a just and Christian way. And the parts that I need to understand are as follows. For God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten son,
but why did he send it? Why did he send his only begotten son? I mean, if there's no fall, there's no reason for him to send his only begotten son. Christianity is just, it's not true. It's unnecessary. It's not as beautiful. The whole story is kind of turned on its head, to be honest. I don't get it.
I don't agree that makes it any less beautiful. And I don't have any way to explain to you my point of view. We just have a different view of the world. There's nothing I can say to explain myself here. Sorry.
That's I'll be honest with you. And I know I haven't been able to answer every question. I don't think I ever will be able to, but I and I'm not trying to be rude, but I honestly feel that position is really not a Christian position. I think it's from really any confession. I think it's entirely incompatible. I mean, you're essentially rejecting a fall, the reason that Jesus Christ came to the earth.
No, I'm not.
So I just don't see it.
No, I'm not. I don't think that had to be one singular fall that affected the entire world, because all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, right?
Sure.
Each one of I approach these things from a more Jungian psychology perspective, where the Garden of Eden sort of represents, I think in my mind, it represents an example of how the human soul operates over the course of a life. We are all told not to do, not to be evil in some way, but we all begin innocent, but we inevitably lose that innocence. And because we have free will, we will sometimes make the wrong choice.
Do we all begin innocent? That's pretty blank slate.
I mean, mentally, when I say, sorry, I apologize for that. When I say we begin innocent, I mean we begin with no knowledge of how good and evil works. I do not mean we begin without sin, so to speak, because we all have the potential for sin.
What then remains?
As they say, ignorance of the law does not constitute an excuse, or what is it? Exempt from the law. And so we all experience, when we're infants, times when we're selfish, when we're angry, wrathful, et cetera, et cetera. And it's hard for me to put this into words because I've never had to put this into words before. It's just something that sort of clicked with me a while back, and it all sort of made sense. But I guess, what was the original question again? Let me get back on point.
Well, yeah, it was basically just, how is there a fall?
Right.
And if you know, with an evolutionary model, I don't see how there is a fall. And if there isn't a fall, there's no need for Jesus Christ.
Mhm.
Christianity just doesn't make sense anymore. So yeah, how would you explain the fall from an evolutionary model? I guess would be a more
Well,
simple.
I guess that's what I'm getting to, is that the fall is something that is synonymous with gaining free will.
So you
in
see
my-
the fall
in
as
my
almost
mind.
a good thing in a sense.
No, it's a neutral thing. It is something that happened. We were set up in such a way that we became the ones who were aware of ourselves.
So you think going against the direct commandment of God and causing, or at least, I mean, even if we're to go directly from the Bible, that directly disobeying or deliberately disobeying the direct order of God, resulting in death and all these terrible things entering the earth, that's neutral, not necessarily bad.
I don't believe you remember. I don't believe there was anyone there who deliberately disobeyed God.
Well, if I mean the counter argument would be the counter argument would be if God really didn't want that to happen, it wouldn't have happened.
Right.
You know, if God really didn't want, I mean, if he really, really didn't want man to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, why'd he put it there?
Exactly.
But you know,
yeah, I'm not really sure that's relevant.
That right there is why I see it as a neutral thing. Because it was a bad, you know.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're going to go around in circles forever. So, any other questions?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Just let me ask another question. So what would you make of Christ's allusions to Genesis, to Moses, to Abraham? Actually, reject. I mean, was he just joking? Was it all allegorical? How would you explain?
No, he was communicating with people who all knew those stories by heart.
So he was.
That was the way that you communicate to people.
Okay. So he was okay. So he knew that all this stuff actually wasn't true, obviously, because he's God. But he was speaking.
I didn't say it wasn't true. I mean, you know, it's just
entire time your position has been that it's not true. You can't hold that Genesis isn't true and.
No. The parts with Abraham. I believe that it's true. I just don't believe it's literal.
You don't believe it's true. What do you believe of Genesis that's true? What? I mean, come on, man.
Look up. Okay. Jungian psychology holds that mythologies represent internal truths of the human psyche. I believe that Genesis is a sort of a blueprint that all intelligent beings go through. In a metaphorical sense.
Okay.
We all experience our own moment of fall.
Okay.
You know?
But then I would say this is extremely novel interpretation of the Bible, of Christianity, one I've never heard before, and I don't believe supported by any Christian confession. I would, at least to any listener, I would caution against sola scriptura for this reason, because you can get just really, really novel ideas. Not that they're not intelligent. I mean, it makes sense. It's logical. But I think it's kind of scary that there's literally not one confession, not one church father who even comes close to anything like this.
So because
Christianity's 2,000-year history, yeah.
Okay.
Well, guys.
So I'm wrong because no old man ever said.
All right, calm down.
I'm sorry. I guess that was a little rude.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Any other questions?
Last question. Okay, so it was one of Jesus Christ's ancestors a monkey? Yes or no? Come on.
One of Jesus Christ's ancestors was the first molecule that left from God's hand when he created the universe. So yes, everything is connected if you go back far enough. That is the way it works, because we are all made of the same material and we are all inspired by the same divine architect who set it all up to become this amazing, beautiful world that we live within.
Right. Okay.
That does not. Why do you think so lowly of one of God's other creations?
I mean,
that's what I want.
Compared to Christ?
Compared to Christ, sure. It's certainly low, but he still made it. He created us. What do you think we are compared to him? And he became us.
Right.
Think about that before you slough that off as some kind of nonsense argument. Okay?
And they ask how Protestantism ended up in egalitarianism.
Okay, fuck you both. I'm going to bed. I hate all of you. God damn it.
The last question was just me just kind of playing around. Obviously, I get your position.
All right.
And guys, it's been fun. I hope I haven't been too rude.
No, you've been fine. Don't worry
I've
about
said
it.
some kind of douchey things. But
It's
hey,
fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I appreciate you coming in, taking the time to ask some questions or answer some questions, man.
All right, man. Have a good. Hey, keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate it. And have a good night, guys. God bless.
All right.
No, I mean it. Seriously. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck the Pope. Go fuck whatever church fathers you're talking to, because I'm sure they fucked you. I am so done with you smug.
That's enough, dude. You calm down. All right. Okay. Moving on. I'm gonna take some callers. Let's see who we got first. All right, I'm gonna bring Black James in. Yes, I know it's very mommy hit daddy at the dinner table moment. We all gotta eat our peas. All right, moving on. Okay.
So while that's coming, I've got a short snippet of reconciliatory poetry.
Okay.
What then remains but, waving each extreme, the tides of ignorance and pride to stem, neither so rich a treasure to forego, nor proudly seek beyond our power to know. Faith is not built on disquisitions vain. The things we must believe are few and plain. So that's a little bit of John Dryden, Religio Laici. And basically he was saying, you know, the things you need to believe to be a good Christian, they're not many and they're not complicated.
Hey, y'all. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, on that, the thief on the cross had little more to go with than I'm with this guy. So that's what Christianity is.
I was. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Please, no more theological argument.
Yeah,
actually, I'm here to talk about like various political things that happened in the last couple of weeks, because I'm really fucking glad at some of the shit that's been down. Regardless of how some people like think about the neocon thing, like I got something to say about that. I think to kind of
see. I've been waiting for you to come on all evening because I wanted to get your take on Steve Stevens and the Facebook murder.
Oh dear God!
Wow.
My same motherfucking opinion on that is that dumb son of a bitch that killed those 3 people was screaming about Black Lives Matter and shit. Like, y'all an embarrassment to all of us. Y'all, that's Steve Stevens and that other, what was that other fucker's name? Corey Almo for some Trigglypuff, whatever the fuck his name is. They an embarrassment to all of us. You know, there's some niggas that pulled our shit together, and like I said, like we the reason why like, white people brought us over here is because they needed somebody that knew what they was doing to go do all the work for them. And then some niggas like this the reason why they invented nooses. God damn. Ugh, fuck this guy. I'm glad he's dead. I wish I had been there to fucking shoot him myself. Embarrassment to all of us.
I stayed up.
I thought it was funny how at first he was running around like, I killed like 14 people. And as far as we know, that was all bullshit. It was just the one guy.
Now, okay, here's something I wanted to say about that, about the Steve Stevens, about that other motherfucker that killed those 3 people stuff. The media still doesn't want to say that these things were terrorist attacks. Steve Stevens was a terrorist attack, and here's why. He was well known to hang out with imams and be part of the Muslim groups in his neighborhood. His ex-girlfriend fucking said so. He killed a guy on Easter, which is a Christian holiday. And the guy, from what I've been told, was like well known in the Christian community in that neighborhood and may have been targeted specifically. This was a terror attack by a Muslim.
Ooh.
Period. And anybody who says otherwise is not reading about the fucking story.
I would also argue that like people have been like, oh well, his religion is irrelevant. Even that aside, I mean, if nothing else, this further demonstrates the fact that unhinged motherfuckers tend to gravitate towards Islam. Maybe
Speaking
there's
of
something about Islam
now,
that gravitates them towards it.
speaking of, and I'm glad that y'all was talking about like God and stuff a second ago. This is a thing I just want to, okay, hold on a sec. Let me take off my MAGA hat, and I'm putting on my nigga hat for a second. This is a thing that I have been thinking of going back years. I remember sitting there on September 11th in 2001 with my grandmother, because I was at home that day, and I was with my grandmother, rest her soul. And she looked at me with fear and worry in her face, wondering what the fuck was happening, because we watched that second plane hit that building, and we watched that day. And my uncle raced over from his house to make sure that we was okay, because he didn't know what the fuck was going on. And we watched this shit, and we watched those buildings come down and turn 3,000 people into fucking powder. We are fighting Satan's army. Cards on the fucking table, real talk. We are fighting the army of the devil. This is not some religion that's crazy. This is not a bunch of weird people that fuck goats. This is not some fucking just a normal genocidal death cult, because there's been lots of genocidal death cults. They didn't do shit like that. They didn't do shit like kick in the door to a nightclub and shoot 50 fucking people. They didn't do shit like run over 80 fucking people, including 10 children. Is an army of people. I don't know who they pray to or what they fucking pray to, but it's not God. It's not a God. It's something darker. It's something more horrifying. It's something that wants us all dead. These people have to be stopped.
I see only one problem with that, which is you do know that jet fuel can't melt steel beams, right? I'm just saying.
Believe me, I wish it was that simple.
I know.
It's one of those things where it's like when I'm getting a little more real talk than usual, but this is like when I remember like when I stopped being an atheist, where suddenly shit hit me, and it hit me like a bullet. It hit me like an avalanche. When suddenly a huge amount of realization just came over me, and I was just sitting there staring at the fucking ceiling like, oh my God, what happened previous years of my life? And the same thing happened to me when I realized the kind of shit that we were going up against Islam. This has to be stopped. And one of the things that's gonna stop it. And this is why y'all talking about like, oh, Donald Trump gave us time and he gave us hope. No, he gave us more than that. Okay, like this man gave us a window of opportunity to fight against an evil that's threatening not just the Western world but mankind. And so is that election that's going on in France. And the reality of the situation is this: 100 years from now, they're going to be talking about this entire decade, and the last 15, 16 years. 100 years from now, they're going to be talking about this, and they're going to be saying one or two things. They're either going to be saying that's when the revolution started and we fought back against these nutcases, or they're going to be saying that was when Western civilization fell and mankind fell under a century of these people before we were finally able to drive them out. And black pill, that's basically. But here's the white pill to that. I feel that we can drive them out. I feel we are driving them out. I see, and that Antifa thing with Moldylocks and her fucking boyfriends getting their shit pushed in was the most beautiful thing I ever seen in my life. And I'm not into gay porn. That was the moment when these little bitches was dragging each other off with bloody faces. That was the fucking moment when these niggas realized for the first goddamn time that they were fighting an army, that we were fighting back, and that we weren't afraid of being called racist that we were willing to die. And I know I'm not. And if these antifas want to fucking try some bullshit, Now they say they want to go out in the middle of the uncharted wilderness and fuck with the people that live out there, like they having swamp people or something, which is how slasher movies start. But okay,
Yeah, I was gonna say they're gonna live out Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
no, they already made a movie literally like this. It was called Just Before Dawn. I'm not even kidding. But a bunch of people go out in the woods and get their shit pushed in by some crazy twins that live out there that are inbred. I would love for some of these Antifas to come to Motown and try some of that bullshit. because the only chance they're gonna have to run away is about the 5-10 minutes it's gonna take for all the black people in the city to coordinate and excuse me before some guns come out, you know. Shit. And I believe that this is the beginning of the end for all of these people. The beginning and the end for whatever the left thinks it is. The beginning of the end for Muslims. I think it's the beginning and end for these fucking illegals and too. And that's a whole nother discussion that has to do with the left and they fucking need for pets and votes and shit. And I am supremely fucking white-pilled about the whole goddamn thing. And I don't believe like, oh, the neocons are tricking Trump. Why? Because he bombed an empty Air Force base in Syria that he phoned them an hour ahead of time, told them to get all their shit out of, and they did. You know, the reason for that, and I remember I kind of said this online, was that like, look, what I think what we can all agree on, I think we all agree that quote unquote chemical attack was probably because he dropped some barrel bombs on a bunch of civilians that just so happened to some of them were terrorists that had chemical weapons. I mean, we all kind of agree that that's the most likely scenario given the circumstances, you know? Yeah.
It's hard to know what it was. And you know what it is. I'll tell you what it is. It's none of our business.
That's a very good answer. That's an excellent answer. No, I'm serious. That's an excellent damn answer. But here's the thing, though. I understand that Donald Trump overreacted for one goddamn night, y'all. And all these people saying, "Oh, I'm off the Trump train. I'm abandoning everything." Calm down. You know, it's like not y'all. I mean, I'm talking about some people I saw on the internet. I'm telling like y'all niggas, like for God's sake.
I mean, I was pretty upset that night.
Go cry to daddy. You know,
you got to remember. I mean, you know, thanks to things like live streaming, we react in real time to shit. And you know, at the time, it sounded like he had gone full neocon. But by the next day,
not to me.
I realized like, no, I don't think that's what happened.
Not to me. And here's why. Not to me. And here's why. When he was talking about what happened, and you really kind of see why he knee-jerked and reacted the way he did. People, I think some people, even on the right, and I think some people in the I don't know what we call ourselves now, the neo-right, the alternative right, whatever. I call us the front line because this is a fucking rebellion against an entire movement of crazy people trying to destroy Western civilization, whatever, alt-right. I think that we even bought some of the propaganda that they told about Donald Trump, about how merciless he was, how cruel he was, how inhuman he was. He's such a ruthless man. He doesn't care about anybody but himself. This man is a grandfather. This man is a father of what, 5 kids and multiple grandchildren now. He's held infants in his hands and looked at in his arms and looked at them. And when he saw that father, it's an iconic image. He saw that father on TV holding his dead babies. And you could see this in his eyes and in his face. You could hear it in his voice when he was talking about beautiful babies are dead. This is a grandfather that's held babies in his arms more times than frankly, than all of us. And everybody on the alt-right has. And he reacted the way that a father reacts to seeing a bunch of dead babies. And I'm sure he regretted it almost immediately. And I think he reacted with enough self-control not to fuck up a situation any worse than it already was. He got his shit in gear very quickly. And the left has been using this and manipulating this to try to sow derision among us for since day fucking one. They were trying to say, oh, now he's a neocon. That's where all that started. All of that started on the left. And I can tell you why. Here's why. All of y'all saw that fire Kushner keep banning hashtags, right? All y'all seen those, right?
Mm-hmm.
More or less.
Yeah.
Okay. Every time I saw one, they were both posted on the same thread together. Like every time someone posted fire Kushner, and they would have keep banning right under it. Yeah. How come Fire Kushner was trending and not keep banning? Because it was bullshit that they made up. It was bullshit they made up to try to get these people to turn against each other, try to turn us all against each other, try to sow derision amongst people who have real power and real control in the movement so that they could make us turn against each other.
See,
and say,
the
oh,
biggest
he's not.
biggest problem I got after the Syria thing is it showed this line of two extremes of people that and both of them, I mean, yeah, like I said, I was very upset initially, but then I stepped back, I looked at it, I said, okay, this might not be as bad as I thought it was. A lot of good might come from this. It was very measured. Okay, fine. And I still have issues with Trump and his administration, things I don't think he's doing right. Things I like Sessions, for example, on immigration. I'm really not liking him on a lot of other stuff. How about you stop wasting time hassling potheads and bust up some of the pedo rings already? But part of that could just be that we're waiting to get enough people in. I understand that. Like I said, I'm taking a measured response. As I said, the Saturday after the day after the attacks, I said, look, I'm not burning my MAGA hat, just not necessarily wearing it today. And I see this. Mm-hmm. You either get like the just blind sycophant dick rider like Bill Mitchell, or you get the just absolute sky is falling, panicky versions of the alt-right. And I'm not in on either one of those. Like, I've got real concerns here, but by and large, I mean, I'm pretty much happy with Trump. This is the best president of my lifetime since Reagan already. All right.
My feeling on the whole matter is, I said it then, and I stand by this because so far I haven't been right. Why don't we wait a while and see what happens with the Syria thing? That's what I said then, and I stood by it. And it turns out I was right, because all we had to do was wait a couple of days, and it turns out nothing was happening with the Syria thing. It was one like cluster of missiles hitting an empty bunch of buildings. Oh God, no! And the thing was up and running again within 24 fucking hours. So again, I think we can all agree nothing fucking happened. Nothing occurred. Nothing occurred to our military, the Syria military, the internal workings of the Trump regime, or anything. Literally nothing happened. It may as well not have been an attack on a Syrian airbase. It may as well have been a fucking bunch of missiles hitting the water or the empty desert, because all the effects it had was apparently fuck zero. And so here we are, and actually like saying like, oh, some people are, some things he's doing ain't great, and some things he's doing I think some of the things he's doing is fucking fine with me, because Jeff Sessions and some of them other people, and more than some of these other people, including Donald Trump himself, said the ground on that wall is breaking probably by the end of the summer, and that's fine with me, because I said as long as the ground on that wall breaks sometime in 2018, I feel like I voted for the right guy. So if it breaks by sometime within the summer or by the end of the year, I'm perfectly fine with the entire scenario. I think nothing bad has happened so far, and I think like he's going after pot smokers. Do I agree with that? Fuck no. I'm kind of. No, I'm kind of that guy. I think like drugs should just be legalized, and if you're stupid enough to shoot heroin up into your arm, then fuck it. I'll buy the grave.
With Sessions, I mean, yeah, I'm on with T2. I think the drug war is an abysmal failure and should be abandoned immediately. But it's also a question of priorities. I just don't generally like what Sessions is focusing on aside from immigration. And then I think it was earlier today he started talking about, prosecuting Assange and WikiLeaks, and no,
that's also bullshit too, from what I've heard. People I know that actually kind of know what's going on have told me that once again that's just
the problem is I think that's what Sessions believes. I don't think that's what Trump believes.
That's what I mean. That's what some people I know who told me. I know, but people that I believe
with the pot thing.
Told me,
because Trump
is that Donald Trump don't give a shit.
Trump's position on pot was very clear. He said in the campaign numerous times, medical marijuana he would like to see legalized at a federal level. Recreational marijuana he believes should be a state-by-state thing, which is, I mean, the most constitutional fucking thing I can imagine a president saying on the issue.
I think we just need to. Frankly, if I had any power, I would just tell them like, look, just legalize it and fuck everybody.
I'd probably legalize it across the board too, but a state-by-state thing is a perfectly legitimate response.
nobody has ever gone crazy on pot and shot up a school or something like that. So it's like I think we could all agree that it's probably like the least dangerous drug imaginable.
It most certainly is.
You know,
Yeah,
it's like
as I said on here numerous times, I think I could make a better public health case for banning corn syrup than marijuana.
I could make a better motherfucking public case for banning Red Bull, considering some shit I've seen people doing gears. Y'all don't multiplay like I do. Shit. Goddamn.
All right. Well, I'm going to move on to another caller here. So
one thing I would like to say. One thing I would like to say though is this: like, I just wanted to kind of tune into that whole creationist thing earlier because I got some answers for some of that shit, and it all ends with why you assuming God would do X. Listen, I started out as an atheist, okay, so I don't know how a lot of these people that grew up in all this stuff really believe in it. But what I believe is this: I remember a good chunk of the Bible from when I used to go to Catholic school. Yes, I used to go to Catholic school even though I was an atheist. It's a long story. I remember a lot of big chunk of the Bible when I used to go to Catholic school. And what I fucking remember about it is this. There's only a couple of times when God actually said anything. The first time he burned some ideas of his into a rock that he thought were really fucking important. And he handed them to humanity and said, here is a rock with my orders. Burned the fuck into it. Do this. And within literally minutes, the guy that he handed it to had thrown him down and shattered it. And I just imagine he was shaking his head so hard it sounded like a thunderstorm. Because that's just how I imagine God is, like Uncle Phil just up there face palming going like, really, really, really.
You ever seen the, I think it was the History of the World movie where Moses comes down with 3 tablets and he's like, the Lord has given you these 15. He drops one and breaks it.
Exactly. Yeah, but that's and that's being too generous. So then years later, God decided, okay, here's what I'm going to try. And he just sends his son to earth to literally sit us down like children and explain this to us as slowly and as clearly as he possibly could. That he was not sin cast the first stone. That is a broad fucking concept that anybody should be able to understand that covers about 13 different things ranging from judgment to the death penalty. Okay, so it's like Jesus sat us all down like children and explained this to us as calmly, as slowly, and as childishly as he possibly could so that we would all get it. We still didn't get all of it, and some fucking faggot nailed him to a cross. So I think that God is just desperately trying to get us to understand a few very simple rules, starting with please, please, please stop killing each other. And he's not getting it across to us very well because we're God's failed experiment. He's trying the best he fucking can. And even he's like at a certain point just kind of shaking his head and going like, what the fuck did I do? And that's why that's my belief as a former atheist that became a Christian is that any of the weird shit that like no, the earth is not 6,000 years old. I know the earth isn't 6,000 years old because evolution is effectively proven it isn't. There's only a handful of times in the Bible that God actually spoke to us. If anything is said in the Bible that isn't either burned into that rock or coming out of the mouth of Jesus, is some bullshit some Jews came up with in the desert a long time ago. Okay, and that's basically my opinion on the Bible. And I know I wasn't always a Christian, so I'm not the best guy to come to with that information, but with that question. But that's basically my opinion. If Jesus didn't say it or wasn't in that rock, then I don't give a fuck. And there you go. That's that's your red pill from an ex-atheist.
I'm gonna move on to the next caller. James, thanks for calling in.
Goodbye. I'm taking my fedora off. Peace out.
Talk to you next week, probably.
Peace out.
All right, we're gonna move on to the next caller. Let's see who else wanted to call in. All right, somebody wants to talk about the March for Science. There was March for Science today, folks.
Oh yeah,
that blinded me.
Yeah, I was thinking about
Science.
going. I was thinking about going, but I realized I wanted to sleep.
It was I just picture Bill Murray like, back off, man. I'm a scientist.
So, funny story. Thomas Dolby, the guy who sang that song, after his career petered out, believe it or not, he actually went and became an airline pilot. And I saw some interview with him where he said every so often he'll be up in the cockpit of the plane and he'll look back and the passenger will recognize him and go, "Science!"
Weird Science was a great movie.
Oh, dude, Kelly LeBrock at her height. Oh,
The show was really good too. I like the show. I'd like to find that on. I wonder if they ever put that on DVD. I should look for that.
Most likely.
I used to love that show. It come on right before Duckman. That was back when TV was worth watching. I know some of you young folk in the audience might not remember that. I was thinking about that the other day. It's like, TV used to be this, amazing thing in our lives. And I thought, like, here recently, like, there are 3 television shows I watch that I would actually be set. Well, I guess kind of 4 that I think about. Like, there's Flash and Arrow, Rick and Morty, and then Son of Zorn is really good. And Son of Zorn, I'm not nearly as attached as the other 3. So let's say 3.5 shows that I would actually be sad if I missed them. You know what I mean? There's other shows I'll watch, but like I'll watch a new Family Guy when it's on. But if I forget that it's on and I miss it, I'm like, whatever. That's it. There's basically 3 shows on what I have like 300 fucking channels. And out of all of them, there's 3 shows. 3/4 shows I give a damn about. How can TV be this bad?
Well, if I could say, Futurama actually predicted this when he said over 1 million channels and only 180 have anything good on.
Seriously, like Comedy Central, that's another good example. Man, Comedy Central used to be my go-to channel. It used to be like I turn the TV on. If it's not on Comedy Central, I'm switching it to Comedy Central. You know what I mean? Like that was the go-to channel. That was the cornerstone. You check that first for something to watch.
Am I on?
Yeah, you're on. And now it's just Comedy Central is for faggots now. I don't know what to say.
Remember when Adult Swim was awesome?
I mean, Adult Swim's still kind of cool. I mean, Robot Chicken's still on it. It's pretty good. Aqua Teen's done. That's gone. But Rick and Morty, like I said, that's Adult Swim.
By the way, if anyone saw, I posted in the chat a link to someone posted on /K a picture of a custom Rick and Morty holster they had made.
Oh, I saw that before. I was like, oh man, it looks like we're on a holster. Rick and Morty. Oh, geez, Rick. And by the way, quick shout out, the Rick and Morty comic book is actually really good too. I think it's written by one of the show writers. It's really interesting. Like it had a storyline where the dimension where Rick's a dumbass. Jerry in that dimension is actually an evil genius because Jerry and Rick's exist on opposite ends of the spectrum. So if one is flipped, the other is flipped, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And that universe is Jerry like takes over the Council of Ricks for a while. It's good writing. It's basically as good as the show. So I think it's in like trade paperbacks if you want to look for it on Amazon. All right, Isaac, what's on your mind?
Yes, I'm going to first talk about the March for Science, which I attended earlier today.
Did you do any science?
No, I just wanted to observe what it was like because...
Well, that's kind of science. That's what science really is.
Everyone at my work was pushing this meeting, and they're all very anti-Trump at my work.
Of course, yeah.
So I'm going to guess that there was a strong odor of body oil and virginity there.
Well, the first thing I would like to...
Well, I assume that since they were all logical, scientific people, they wanted to discuss the human biodiversity theories, right? They didn't want to discuss those theories?
But the interesting thing is, even though the keynote speakers were pressing like how great diversity is, most of the attendees were white. There were only a few African Americans, Asians, East Indians.
Well, of course there weren't any Asians. I mean, it wasn't the March for Math.
So I would say this March for Science is another form of implicit white identity.
So they blended you with whiteness. Whiteness.
I don't know about that, but it was a very white protest. And when I was going in there, the thing I wanted to observe was how much of it was going to be the protesters were relating to science-related issues, or how much of it would be just a general left-wing SJW protest. So I didn't know exactly what it was like going in. However, it turned out to be mostly related to science. Now, a lot of times when the science type people use the word anti-science, that is just a code for global warming denier.
Right. Well, as far as the sort of science-obsessed left goes, Maddox wrote an article a couple of years ago called "You Do Not Fucking Love Science." And it was going through all of these, IFLS memes that were these cartoons and, Neil deGrasse Tyson's face superimposed on stars with some quote, and how many people were liking that on Facebook as opposed to, how many people were liking high-pressure spectrum chromatography pages. Yeah. The truth is that as far as politicized science is concerned, science consists of two issues: evolution and global warming. There is nothing else to it. They don't care about anything else.
However, there wasn't really much on evolution. It was most of it was either global warming or upset that Trump is going to cut the fundings to the NSF and NIH.
Oh, yes, that's it.
Which is funny because hasn't Trump talked about increasing the funding to NASA? Why is the science-obsessed left perfectly okay with the way Obama gutted NASA? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd rather space exploration be largely private anyways. But, you'd think these leftists would be all about NASA. I mean, I realize if we spend too much on NASA, we won't be able to give a lot of money to crackheads and single moms. Maybe that's why the left is concerned. But
I also saw quite a few pussy hats there.
Does anybody remember? Okay,
including a rainbow-colored pussy hat worn by a man.
That's called the boy pussy hat, I believe. It also comes in brown.
Oh, and then there was another pussy hat flying spaghetti monster hybrid hat. I saw on someone.
Even in my agnostic days, I thought that whole flying spaghetti monster thing was stupid. And I remember literally in high school as an agnostic arguing with an atheist where and it was the first time I ever heard that argument, actually. And he was like, well, believing in God is like believing in a flying spaghetti monster. I'm like, the fuck you talking about? I looked at him I turned my head a little sideways like I was a dog. I was like, nigga, are you serious? And he's like, what? Well, I mean, you can't. And I'm like, no. Let me tell you something. If there was this inherent, almost genetic memory belief in humanity of a flying spaghetti monster, and every culture in the history of our species believed in some manner of flying spaghetti monster or monsters, and many people claim to have seen such a thing, I might think there's a decent chance it exists. That's the difference between the two, buddy.
And then I'm going to summarize some interesting signs I saw. One of them was Schrodinger's pussy grabs back. It's based off of the Schrodinger cat.
But does it?
Yeah, but how do you know?
It does until it's grabbed.
Then there was one, I stand with her, and then they had an arrow pointing to an picture of the earth and had underneath Mother Nature.
Oh.
Then there was...
That's so insulting to Earth.
Is it not possible to be a conservationist without being Gaia worshipping these days?
There was quite a few Gaia worshipping signs at the March for Science. It kind of goes in with the warnings about global warming signs.
If you worship Gaia, I would invite you to wander into the closest rainforest or jungle, and you see how much Gaia loves you back.
Yeah, the name of the song isn't "Welcome to the Gaia."
Then there was a sign
you'll find that that's a pretty harsh mother.
Mother Nature, Mother Earth's Most Wanted, and it had Scott Pruitt of the EPA, and then it had underneath wanted for crimes against nature.
It's funny. I don't believe it was his EPA that destroyed a river. Last I checked.
Then there was a sign saying the science is right. Earth is round, but I don't know, or the Earth isn't flat, but then I don't know any flat earthers.
Fucking
So
sphere cuts.
that was like a straw man sign. There was, I'm trying to think of one other. I'm just thinking of the interesting
By the way, I do really
ones.
wanna
Oh
put a
yeah,
flat earther on
science
here.
flies you to the moon. Religion flies you into buildings.
Well, no. See, it's just the one that does that. It's just the one religion. Because last I checked, there weren't any Christians doing it. There weren't Baptists. There weren't fucking Catholics doing that. I don't remember the last time I've seen a nun holding a severed human head. It wasn't a Buddhist doing that. Wasn't even the Wiccans. No, it's just the one religion that seems to be doing that. So let's not say religion in general here, all right?
Yeah, I just posted another picture in the chat if you want to throw that up on screen.
Yeah, so it was an interesting thing, but there was quite a few people at my work that went to the march, but I only saw a few of them.
Throw that up, Luke. That's great. Oh, fucking atheist.
And the other thing I thought was interesting with this march was there were quite a few of the protesters were parents who brought their small children there.
Shouldn't they be in school learning about science?
Well, this was on a Saturday.
Oh,
morning.
okay. All right. Oh, it was today. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. When you're unemployed, you lose track of all the days.
So was this worldwide, or where was this march happening?
This was in my city I lived in, but they were in cities all over America.
It's about time we restored science. Since Trump got in, we've just been beating rocks together and doing voodoo dances.
Oh, and there's also a lot of signs talking about like the warnings of like fake news and alternative facts, including one interesting sign. Alternative facts are, then they had the square root of -1, which in math represents imaginary numbers.
So imaginary numbers are fake news, or what?
Nothing is
No,
witty as a
alternative
math.
facts are imaginary, but instead of writing imaginary, they use the square root of -1.
I tell you what, the left can't meme. If they think fucking math is just neat happens.
Well, I mean, they have no experience. They'd have no world experience to make a good meme.
Fake news
That's
is bad.
memes have to be true.
Fake news is bad. Now listen to my story about how Trump peed on prostitutes in a Russian hotel room.
Oh, and then there was another sign that says, Russia can't rig the ozone layer.
I don't know. The way these Democrats describe it, Russia sounds pretty fucking powerful. All right?
Maybe Russia could stop global warming.
I wouldn't be surprised if those cosmonauts are fucking up there with saran wrap.
Well, they were only powerful after the election, keep in mind.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Putin's like the bad guy from Harry Potter. He's some sort of dark wizard. only unlike the bad guy from Harry Potter, Putin actually has a discernible motive.
By the way, it really is true that the left can only make references to Harry Potter or Star Wars. I mean,
there was a few
like
Harry Potter and Star Wars based signs there.
I like to make references to fiction too myself, but it is telling that the left can only stick to the most basic bitch sci-fi and fantasy there is. You know,
look, at very least, comparing Trump to Lex Luthor would have some level of truth to it.
well, that's because they never heard of Lex Luthor. Okay. You know, all they know is movies. Okay, Lex Luthor's that guy from the Social Network, Man of Steel. They don't.
I put another an appropriate flat Earth picture up.
Oh, goody. Let's see.
Oh. All right, man. Well, anything else on your mind?
Yes, there was another interesting thing is I was looking at different men, and I noticed that certain type of men have this certain type of look. In the first example,
I highly doubt there were any men there.
No. This this
I'm
has
sure
nothing
there were
to do.
some males, but
Speaking of
No,
Star Wars, it's a
this-
trap.
This has nothing to do with the science march, but it's just there's
okay.
just me browsing on the internet saw there was this certain look
You're looking for
of
some
men.
men?
So I'm going to give. I don't know if you can post the image. So it's from like the Google image search. So I'll just put the link.
Images of the men you were cruising for, but
No. This is this man here is Francesca Ramsey of MTV Decoded Husband. You have to check out how this guy looks.
What is this?
oh my god, he's married to that Shiboon?
Oh.
Yeah. That's her husband, Patrick Condas.
Oh. That's a bit awkward.
And yeah, there's a bunch of
straight up gay face.
And if you look at his picture, and if you, I don't know if you can find the other
I mean,
images,
given
but
that he's married to Eddie Murphy, I guess that makes sense.
he has a similar look. I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like he has a similar look in his face to people like Russell D. Moore. I don't know if you have.
Moore, the evolution, or the evangelical guy, the Baptist guy.
Yeah, if you like superimpose like their image.
What, you mean that they got cuck face? I mean,
and then you also have Lindsey Graham, John Oliver.
How the fuck you gonna lecture me about white people evil when you're riding a white dick every night?
It's like all these guys have like a certain look to them.
I mean, she's probably not riding his dick, but maybe I don't know.
Oh. Let's see. What's all the associated pictures here?
Which, by the way, I had somebody ask me once why I wasn't mad about the fact that like Iris West was black in The Flash. Like, aren't you mad about this interracial couple? Because I bitched about the Jimmy Olsen being black in Supergirl, but the media had for so long pushed the black guy with the white woman, despite that being far less common than the inverse, that it's almost fucking refreshing when I see him push the opposite. All right, it's almost like, oh, well, at least the white guy's getting some too finally. So that's kind of why, like, it's very interesting. I find that
Also, let's
they
be
never
honest.
push, because the inverse is far more true. This horrible couple aside, while interracial marriages and couplings are very rare, they're not nearly the threat the alt-white imagines they are. They're not as common as the TV box tells us. White men with black women are far more common than the inverse and tend to be far more stable relationships. For whatever reason, okay? Just facts, all right? These are just, these are numbers here. So I almost think that it's telling the way the media pushes black men with white women. It's not just that they're pushing interracial coupling. They're pushing something specifically anti-white male when they do that. And no, I'm not saying every single time that appears in a work of fiction, that's what they're doing. But the sheer volume of it becomes a pattern. But anyways, what else was on your mind, Isaac?
No. I was just thinking how this one Francesca Ramsey's husband had a similar look to other men like Russell D. Moore, Lindsey Graham, and John Oliver. Like, if you just compared all their faces.
Well, yeah, it's like, here's the thing. We tell kids that you can't tell a book by its cover. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a lie. What we should be telling kids is you can't always tell a book by its cover. But what the hell do you think the cover's for? All right.
But I don't know if it's just me, or is it just like imagining there's similarities in the faces of these guys, or are they? Like,
back when Hartees was really worth reading, he used to nail this, how often you can tell a lot about a person just at a glance. And again, not always, but often. And yeah, it's low T. They got gay face, they got cuck face, all right? There's no, it's clear who wears the strap on in this relationship, all right? And but yeah, you're dead on there. There's definitely something to that. I mean, low T is a real problem. I'm not sponsored by Andro Plus, but I highly recommend them.
Yeah, so this was just something I kind of noticed just browsing through the internet. You know, when I saw this guy, I was like, wow, this guy has similar looking face. Where have I seen it before? And it's like, oh, these other men have it.
I don't know if you should be married to a white man, sweetie. Isn't that like oppressive? I mean, isn't he, colonizing that ass every night? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I don't know.
Now the next thing is to find who's Lacey Green's boyfriend or.
Man, it's such a shame. Lacey Green would probably like before she became insane. She was probably a good fuck. She seems cute enough. I'd get on her if she wasn't such a dangerously insane individual. I have to say.
Well, she did proudly say that she has probably claimed that she's ruined 5 homes.
Well, that just means she probably burned them down or something. I don't know. All right, man. Anything else on your mind?
Oh, that's it.
All right, man. Thanks for calling in.
Okay. Thanks for having me on. Okay, you too. Bye.
Yeah.
Oh, and Bechtloff, I found a DVD set for first and second season of Weird Science.
Oh, sweet.
Used at $43 and new for $300 to $800.
What the fuck?
For the first 2 seasons.
I assume that's been out of print for a while.
Probably.
Oh, fuck that.
But used is at $43 if you're interested.
No, I can't justify that. I mean, I'm sure I could find almost all of them on YouTube. I can't justify that. All right. So I wanted to cover some nerd shit before we got to another caller. So the thing I want to talk about this week that was kind of interesting, and I thought of it because I was digging through. Back in the late 90s, DC did this thing called the Tangent Line. And it was a series of one-shots taking place on an alternate Earth, where the idea behind these one-shots was they take the name of a character from their regular universe and then give the writers that name and say, create a whole new character using this name. Whole different concept, whole different character. For example, they take Flash, and the Flash of that world is a chick who has energy/light-based powers. She's basically like an energy creature almost. The Atom, who in the regular DC universe is just a guy who can shrink, in the Tangent universe is basically an atomic-powered Superman-like character. The Green Lantern is this chick who has a mystical Japanese-style Green Lantern that can raise the dead. Pardon me. Some of these one-shots weren't very good, but the overall universe was very good. And in particular, the Flash one-shot was great. Luke, I don't know if you can bring up some pictures of like Tangent Flash.
Let's see.
Or Tangent Green Lantern, like DC Tangent Comics, something like that. It did end up doing a crossover with the regular DC universe because that's the Tangent Green Lantern. The Tangent Superman, there was 2 waves of one-shots, right? There was like one, and then the next year there was a couple more. The Tangent Superman is actually this guy who had developed basically mind bullet powers, like extreme psychic powers, and sort of wanted to take over the world. Like Tangent Joker was this almost V for Vendetta type anarchist, like I want to say vigilante, but fighter against the system kind of thing.
What is this Superman? Is this Superman?
Oh, let me see. See what you got here. That is the Tangent Universe Superman, yes. Because again, remember, we just take the name and create a whole different character based on the name. Yeah, but see if you can bring up Flash, because the Flash ones are really good. And what was very interesting about those one-shots is this character was just like unapologetically girly, which is something, I mean, these days, especially at Marvel, but a little bit at DC, you couldn't get away with. Like, she would go to fashion shows and stuff like that. It was just, the character, the Tangent Flash, is almost indestructible, basically. Like, within universe, it's no one knows even how to really harm her. She's this energy creature, basically. Like, she gets hit by this blast at one point in the story, and she's just sitting there kind of stunned, and she's like, I think I swallowed my gum. Like, and again, it's just bubbly, cute, girly dialogue from her. It's so refreshing. But they're really good one shots. You can find them in trade paperbacks reprinted. Some of them aren't that good, to be honest, but some of them are really worth it. And you can find the individual issues cheap at almost any comic book store.
This is the Joker.
There's the Tangent Joker. The first line of one shots they tried to avoid using Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Then like the second line of one shots they introduce them. Like Batman was actually this basically Dark Knight character who was like immortal and left over from like Camelot days and stuff. What was Power Girl was a completely different character. I think I can't remember what her deal was, but her costume was vastly different. And then sometimes they'd take the names and it wouldn't even be a character. Like that universe's version of S.H.I.E.L.D., like the covert government organization that deals with superhumans, was called Nightwing.
Huh.
It was a really interesting experiment. Like I said, the Tangent Flash is the two one shots of it are really good. Like I would read a monthly series based on Tangent Flash easily. Yeah, there's the Tangent Batman.
Uh-huh.
It was a really cool little alternate universe DC did. And like I said, there was a crossover with the main universe where like the Tangent Superman was trying to conquer the main DC universe and stuff like that. It was a cool little crossover. But yeah, definitely worth checking out, especially the Tangent Flash one-shots. And I mean, you can find, depending on what comic book store you go to, you might be able to find these in a dollar bin. They're not in heavy demand. They never really have been. They're kind of a sort of forgotten thing that DC did, and it's a shame. But yeah, that's kind of the one little obscure comic thing I wanted to cover. Also worth mentioning, Marvel is supposed to be doing a Cloak and Dagger series. And Cloak and Dagger, and I don't know if you can bring up a picture of Marvel Cloak and Dagger. It's these two teens that there were usually just Spider-Man characters, but they popped up wherever in the Marvel Universe. The girl is named Dagger, and she has like these kind of light-based powers, but it's almost like a spiritual light, like a psychic kind of light thing. And then Cloak has like this cloak that's basically like a portal to the shadow dimension and stuff like that. Now, the interesting thing about this, and this kind of gets to, it's worth mentioning because of the, interracial coupling thing we mentioned. You got to remember this was the 80s and all. Cloak is a black guy, and Dagger is a pale-skinned white girl, right? Now, they are kind of a couple, too. But the interesting thing about that is that shows you, like, why is this an interracial couple? Well, the reason is because comics are a very, very visual medium. And we like to be very, very on the nose with visual metaphors, as it were. So we make the guy whose power is darkness the black guy, and we make the chick whose power is light a pale-skinned blonde. Basically, it's just to further hammer home the nature of these characters and their powers. I'm almost amazed that SJW these days could practically call it racist. But it just goes to show you that, like, this is why, like, I don't knee-jerk react against this kind of thing, because that's an obvious example of something that was done for probably purely artistic reasons. I don't believe for a second that the creators of Cloak and Dagger were like, I'm going to push some fucking miscegenation, yay! No, they were probably like, hey, this makes it much more obvious what I'm going for.
Well, it's weird how you hear about miscegenation, but you never hear about segenation.
By the way, am I even pronouncing that word right? Because I'm not sure I've ever heard it fucking spoken. I always just read about it.
I'm pretty sure that's the right way to say it. Although
usually when I hear the alt-right talk about it, they just say, burn the coal, pay the toll.
Although, yeah, I mean, I'm sure the SJWs could find something racist about this, but how can they? I mean, technically, it's what they want.
Why the black guy got to be the darkness? I don't know. Haven't you seen Chappelle's show? The darkness is spreading.
Oh.
But no, like that's the thing. Like again, coming back to what I said earlier, like, you know, a disagreement I have with some elements of my fellow writers. I just think they focus too much on the racial thing. I mean, race matters, you know, but it's not all that matters.
So were we going to get to Seventh Son?
I guess.
Fight me in real life, Forney.
Oh, jeez. I really hate talking about the TRS guys because it's just fucking depressing. But one of the TRS guys, I guess, I don't know why. He's all like he wants to fight Common Filth in real life. And then Forney's making fun of that, so now he wants to fight Forney in real life. And I'm amazed at the number of people that are like, Forney, you have to do this now, honor-based. Yeah, you have to respond to some unhinged maniac on the internet.
Wait, is this the same guy?
I don't know. What are you bringing up there?
Oh, no, I'm trying to remember who was challenging Forney to a fight.
Seventh Son from TRS. I don't know anything about the guy because I don't really pay attention to TRS guys if I don't have to. You know, because I'm not. I don't even want to say shit. I don't even want to talk about them. That's the thing. I don't like talking about them. They're fucking depressing. You know, I don't like seeing shittiness from people that are ostensibly on my side. You know, don't punch right, except when we do it.
Yeah, that's just, you know.
Somebody in the chat said Seventh Son should fly United to get to Forney. I guess that'd be good practice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a simmering dumpster fire. Just
I look in the earliest days of doing this kind of blogging, like when I would have still called myself Manosphere, I guess, because that's what, you know, fringe right-wing elements were calling themselves that week. You know, people were like, "Oh, you should check out the right stuff. You should check out the right stuff." And I just did, like, I listened to some of it, and some of the stuff I heard was interesting, but I just got like an obnoxious edgelord vibe off of them. And I'm like, this isn't for me. Whatever. But I was never into those guys, and I never really followed them. But you know, they got extreme. They, for the longest time, they went after Forney and Arini with just this white hot passion, and all the while screaming about never punching right. You know, never assault your allies unnecessarily. Meanwhile, they're just, from what I understand, they were mad at Forney because he fucked a chick they wanted to fuck or something. Oh no, they were mad at Davis because of that. It was all petty fucking bullshit.
Yeah, there's a lot of, especially the 1488 crowd, that just needs to grow up in so many ways, to so many aspects, in their personal relationships. Again, this whole thing about, you know, just turning on a dime with Trump and not being worldly enough to understand that, yeah, no politician is ever going to give you 100% of what you want. You know, like I've said, the reaction to it has been like a first breakup. And, you know, just...
I mean, look, there's got to be lines that people cross. Like, look, if Trump was outright pushing for regime change in Syria and going forward with it, I would outright be, no, fuck this guy. But that's not what he was doing. Now, for a brief moment, for an evening, I thought maybe that's what he was doing. But then I found out, okay, that's not what he was doing. So I'm not, you know, okay, whatever.
And by the way, notice how TRS's fans turned on them as soon as the revelation about Mike Enoch happened. I mean, just on a dime, like some huge chunk of their audience just, I mean, you know, these hoes ain't loyal.
And like I said, they are too fucking obsessed with, interracial coupling. Like, it's this huge fucking thing. Like, the way they talk about it, you would think 40% of what fucking white women are having mulatto babies, the way they fucking talk about it. Like, it's not that big of a fucking deal. I'm upset that it gets pushed on us by a very anti-white narrative in the media. I don't like that. But, the way they still harp on Forney because he went to the Philippines and banged some gook. So what? At least he's had sex, you fucker. Because half of the, I'm sorry, but it was so frustrating over the past few months, and I tried to keep my mouth shut for the longest time. But here, for example, and I'm not going to name names, but being lectured by a 19-year-old on Twitter who never kissed a girl about how Roosh is a rapey kebab, using basically half feminist logic about it. I don't want to hear that shit from the right. And also, go fucking get a girlfriend already before you want to lecture me on the fucking fairer sex.
Well, it could be worse. Could be Mike Anisimov's latest.
Oh my God! Somebody on Twitter actually tweeted me out of nowhere with this blog they had set up about Mike Anisimov is a racist or whatever, and they even deleted the tweet, so I deleted the response. But they're like, "Should Mike Anisimov be in jail?" And I'm like, I don't know if he should be in jail, but the guy's not right because there's all these tweets about how I'm going to kill her, buddy. Because Mike, I guess, is somebody broke his copy of Sonic and Knuckles, and he's just not been able to, calm down, dude. I know it's a great game, but we'll get you another one, Mike.
Nobody tell him about Blue Arms.
Of course.
Yeah, there's something about 1488 that just attracts people with maturity problems.
Well, based on what I know, for the 1488 people are basically young, it's still not they're in that mindset that Bechtloff always talks about atheists, screw you, dad, or and just turn up the radio music. They're just people who are
I'm so. Look, Davis Arini caught a ton of shit from a smelly chemist, but I like what he said when he's like, I'm a white nationalist on paper. And that's basically where I am, okay? I am extremely sympathetic to the concerns and the goals of white nationalism. I just can't get on board with it 100%. I just can't see race as the end-all, be-all. And if there's one thing these 1488ers seem to be good at, it's scaring away anybody who's not on board with them 110%. I mean,
everyone who is into sort of genre stuff knows that there are fandoms where, even if you like the source material, the fandom itself is just ooh, you got to back off of that a little bit. You can't judge a property by its fandom, but at the same time, if I was just some soccer mom somewhere who enjoyed reading Harry Potter books to her kids, I'd have to do a little disavowing before I said anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm almost in that boat because I'm somebody who enjoyed the Harry Potter movies. I never read the books, but I watched the movies when they came out. I thought they were enjoyable popcorn flicks. So, I hate Harry Potter fans, though. I don't even hate Harry Potter. I think it's kind of dumb, but again, cute, enjoyable popcorn flicks for what they were. But Harry Potter's basically on the level with Star Wars with me. It's okay, it is what it is. It's basic bitch stuff. It's entry level fantasy.
Yeah, you can't judge a property by its audience except if you're Steven Universe.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Well, I mean, really.
But it's the same thing with 1488. It's oh no, I'm not like the fans. No. That's 1488. It's the Harry Potter of right-wing politics.
Yeah, and again, I am, I guess 1488 on paper to some extent, but I can't. I remember Arini on Twitter again talking to a 19-year-old who never kissed a girl, trying to convince him that maybe, just maybe, there are moral imperatives in this world that are slightly above preservation of your race. You know, and he was trying to come at him from a religious standpoint that maybe, just maybe, there are a few moral imperatives above that, and he was having none of it. And that kind of just, you know, and I guess because I'm a man of faith, that just kind of recoils.
And not only preservation of your race, but preservation of every single member of your race.
Well, yeah, there's that. I mean, you know, the way some, and I'm not trying to paint a broad brush, the way some of the 1488ers want a white knight for basically every fucking white woman out there. Look, some of these need to get culled from the herd, all right?
Not every white person can be saved,
Yeah,
or should be.
I'm Movie Bob's not my brother, all right? How about that? How about we use that example? Trust me, if I was in charge of who gets to go on the rocket and go to the planet we're going to all colonize, somebody like Tommy Sotomayor is in line before Movie Bob, okay? That's just how it is.
Although, to be fair, Movie Bob's probably not going to be breeding anytime soon, so nothing to worry about.
Probably not, no.
I brought up Movie Bob.
Speaking of never kissed a girl, Movie Bob. All right. I'm going to bring in some other callers here. Let's see. What else? Is there anything else I wanted to cover? I don't think so. The only other thing I don't know if I even want to bring this up, but like people keep coming to me about it, and I don't really know much about it, but apparently Bernard Chapin and Aaron Clary are fighting, and I like both of them, so I don't know really why. But like people keep bringing that up to me, and it's kind of a shame. Like some of the infighting is just kind of a shame. You know, and I realize, like, you know, I don't know.
I'm tired of it, honestly.
I'm just a little burned out on politics anymore, I think is what it is with me. And I mean, you know, I spent basically 2 years, you know, watching heavily and albeit in a small amount, participating in a very heated election cycle. And I don't know anymore. I'm just kind of burned out on it.
It's not bad. I don't think it's a bad thing for everyone to sort of retreat a little bit. You know, Trump's in office. What's going to happen for the next few years is going to happen. At this point, we can't really do that much to affect it. So, you know.
I mean, like, keep an eye out on 2018. But other than that, there's not a lot to do right now. You know?
And everybody needs a break.
All right, I'm bringing in another caller. So,
all right.
And I think Pastor Tom wanted to hop in.
He's been wanting to hop in for like 2 hours.
Okay.
Since the conversation earlier.
Let's see. What's going on here in the chat? I'll take a look at this while we're waiting on a call. Let's see. Somebody says, I hope they bring up Persona 5. I don't know anything about Persona 5, so. I mean, I keep hearing people talk about it. Was there some sort of controversy with the localization? Like, I heard a bit about that, but I don't know if either one of you guys know about that.
Not really.
Not really, no. I haven't heard anything about Persona 5 at all.
Yeah, I don't really know. Dead air, waiting on callers.
I should have brought another poem.
Well, since we're going to have dead air, has anyone seen the new Samurai Jack yet?
I have not. Like, I've heard really good things about it, but
What's going on here in the chat? I'll take a look at this and while we're waiting.
What's going on? Hey. Make sure you mute your YouTube there.
Let's see.
White, whoever you are.
White, you got to mute your YouTube.
Okay.
All right. What's on your mind?
Oh, I was just wondering, can you wait on me just for a minute? Like, I just got to grab something. Like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It'll be like 2 seconds.
Well,
it's really good radio here.
Right.
Right.
Well, anyway, Samurai Jack is it's really picks it up from where it left off, and has blood and gore, of course, or no, just blood, no gore, but yeah.
Well, yeah, it's on Adult Swim now, isn't it?
Yep.
Well, that's cool because I mean, basically everyone who grew up with it has kind of grown up, and it wasn't that much of a kid show to begin with. It was
yeah, rather than blood
back then.
Rather than blood splattering all over, it was robot parts and oil.
Chances that this is not a troll call. Dropping.
No, this guy's called before, I think.
Yeah, I'm back now.
Okay, so what's on your mind?
I just wanted to talk about Canada is recently going to, there is a bill in the works to legalize doctor-assisted euthanasia for the mentally ill, and I just wanted to hear your guys' opinion on that.
Here's the thing. I'm actually very much for assisted suicide in cases of people that are terminally ill and wish it. That's quite a different boat though from what is essentially forced euthanasia on people that don't want it or are incapable of making that decision because of their faculties are low. Now, I mean, it's not strictly black and white because, I mean, there are fates in this world far worse than death. And there does come a time when you can very much argue death is a mercy. That said, though, I don't like the idea of it applying to the mentally ill. That seems like, I don't know. That seems like we're just, getting rid of the undesirables, as it were.
But it's not like forced. It's like they can go in and
again, I mean, it would depend kind of case by case. But if we're talking mentally ill, we might be talking about somebody that does not have the wits, the faculties about them to make that decision. Again, it's much different. Like if somebody is dying of cancer or whatever, this or that disease where they're in a lot of pain and they're dying and they're like, you know what? I've made my peace with God. I've got my will straightened out. I'd rather not face this next 10 months of agony and shitting myself and being a burden to everybody. I think it's time to check out. I not only think that person should have the legal right, I think it's downright evil to stand in the way. That's a whole different topic, though, from somebody who doesn't have their faculties about them. Like I said, that's different. I'm not one of these anti-euthanasia people who think that life is always worth clinging to, period, full stop. I don't think this life is all that there is, and there are fates in this world far worse than death. There's a former high school teacher of mine, for example. I guess this is a case of mental illness, but a former high school teacher of mine, he was very young, and he was a very witty man, very bright man, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and he's basically gone. And I understand the logic behind somebody thinking it's best to put a bullet in his head. And trust me, if I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, that's on the to-do list, is see if I can pull the trigger on my shotgun with my toe. But it's very much different than, again, right now this guy can't decide that. And while it's horrifying to watch, and I'm not lying when I say I pray frequently, he's, the good Lord takes him home. I don't know. It's a far more gray area when you're talking about the mentally ill. But when you're talking about somebody that is dying and wishes to expedite the process, that I fully support.
Okay, because like some European Union countries have already like allowed it on the mentally ill, like so.
Well, see, the problem, and this comes with leftist governments, the problem when they start allowing something is that to the leftist mindset, that which is not forbidden is mandatory. Okay? Like gay marriage is a perfect example. We didn't just allow gays to get married. You have to bake a cake and throw them a parade or we're going to throw you in jail. You know what I mean? That's the biggest problem with the leftist mindset. So there does come to be this slippery slope argument with this that, you know, next thing you know, we're just going to get rid of all the undesirables, as it were. Anti-Dem, you're Catholic. You got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, no. Also, I don't know what Europe has to do with anything. I mean, there's a certain very large contingent of the left that talks about Europe like it was fucking Narnia, and like anything that Europe does, that means it's a good idea and everybody ought to do it. And I don't know what that's all about.
I like how Ann Coulter said, she was like, you know, maybe when it comes to cooking, they have a lot to teach us, but when it comes to forms of government, I think we have something to teach them.
Okay,
but yeah, that's my answer to you. When it comes to somebody that is dying and has their wits about them and chooses it, I absolutely support their right to do just that. When you're talking about somebody who does not have perhaps the mental faculties to make that choice, it's a whole different ball of worms, and I don't really have an answer for it.
What if it was someone like suffering from like severe depression and they had tried like multiple medications, like, and they just couldn't like fix their depression, like?
Well,
I'm not sure what was incomplete about that answer. It's like you could sit here
it's
all
the
night
same
going,
thing.
well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, what about this? Well, what about
And
that?
look, I mean, here's the thing. Unless you're physically incapacitated, I mean, a law against suicide can't do a great deal for you. It can't do a great deal to stop you. I mean, it's one thing when you're physically incapacitated and you need a doctor's assistance, right? Then obviously what the law says is an issue. But if it's illegal for me to kill myself and I decide, well, fuck the police, and I put a gun in my mouth, what are they going to do about it? You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, obviously guns need to be banned so that you won't do that.
You know, I mean, you know, what are you going to charge me with a crime officer? I mean, in some regards, kind of a law against suicide is sort of silly in that regards. So, I mean, I if somebody's depressed and they want to kill themselves, I'm not going to advise them to do that. But at the same time, what the fuck am I going to do to stop them?
Look, leftism's perfectly consistent. We need to legalize assisted suicide, and we also need to ban guns so people won't commit suicide.
You know, I mean, look, as for somebody that is suffering depression and wants to kill themselves, my advice is this. Look, I am not going to be all evangelical, spiritual, autistic about it and tell you that life is always worth living, because sometimes it's not. But you know what? I mean, when things are looking really bad and you want to kill yourself, you know, why not just give it another week? You know what I'm saying? Like, because, like, here's the thing. You can always do that later. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe just give it a week. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's that one news article where this guy wants to kill himself, so he goes down to fucking Mexico and he does a line of coke off a hooker's ass, and then he's like walking away like, maybe things ain't so bad. You know? Like, that's an actual news story. Like, I don't know what to tell you on that.
No, I wasn't talking about myself. Like,
I know you weren't. I wasn't saying you were, but like, as a general, somebody that's like depressed and wants to kill themselves. I mean, you know, what do you need the fucking government's approval for if you want to do it? What are they going to do to stop you? You know, it's a different case when you're talking about people that are physically dying and they require a doctor's assistance to perhaps expedite the process, that's a different case. That's where, you know, we need the law involved, because first of all, there's another person involved. That's the thing. I mean, assisted suicide is a crime, but suicide is the ultimate unenforceable crime. Okay? I mean, what the fuck are you gonna do about it? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, if there was like a crime where there was literally, like, let's say it's illegal to rob a bank, right? But let's say it was impossible for them to do anything after I rob a bank. I mean, what's fucking stopping me? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I don't think the law needs to give you a fucking stamp of approval. First of all, if that's what you really want to do, you know, it kind of comes down to like that leftist mindset of like, you know, everybody has to throw me a fucking parade for my life choices. You know what I mean?
How do you have a parade for suicide?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, assisted suicide is a legal question that needs to be grappled with. And as I said, I'm pretty clear on where I stand on it. I think it's if somebody is physically dying and they wish to expedite the process and they are of sound mind, I think it's downright evil to stand in their way. But you know, beyond that, I mean, this isn't. It's kind of outside of the government's jurisdiction, as it were. You know, you go ahead and blow your brains out, and there's a whole different court you need to answer for that. All right.
Okay, that pretty much answers my question. Like,
all right. Anything else on your mind?
No, I just want to sort of talk about that.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thanks for calling. Good topic. Have a good week. All righty. I don't think we got any other callers. Oh, wait, no, we got one more. All right, we're going to do one more, and then we'll wrap things up.
Are we going to get Pastor Tom on?
Pastor Tom said he didn't want to. He just wanted to hop in on the creationist discussion, which I think was heated enough.
We need some cans so Undertow can go out like Ghost.
He's fine. He just gets a little.
Personality having jerk dicks.
He just gets a little emotional sometimes. That's fine.
You're fruiting up my baller Friday, caller.
He's young. He's young. You know, hot-headed. You know, them damn kids. Not to resurrect the awkward topic, but the simple answer I would give to some of that, and Undertow had much more elaborate answers than I do, is on a lot of those sort of questions of how I square away evolution with my Christianity. The real answer is I don't know. And Undertow sort of said this, and he was, not to sound arrogant, but he was copying me because it's something I've said on this channel numerous times. I also don't know how the Trinity works. I also don't know how free will and predestination both exist. There comes a point where I have to admit I can't really square the circle here. I believe the evidence points towards a literal Christ that was resurrected. I also believe the evidence points towards evolution. I don't know how those things coincide, but maybe I don't have to, is basically my answer to those sort of questions. And that's everybody's worldview is going to end up with that. You know, that this guy was honest enough to say, hey, I don't necessarily have answers to some of those questions, and that's fine. You know, everybody's worldview is going to come to some points where you can't square the circle. And to be honest, it was the predestination versus free will argument that kept me out of Christianity for a while. It was the intellectual question I wrestled with the most coming into Christianity, and finally had to admit that the Bible teaches both free will and predestination, and I don't know how those two things coexist. And maybe that's okay. All right, caller, what's on your mind?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. What's going on?
Have you guys heard about the DACA amnesty?
I have heard nothing about this.
Yeah.
Trump said he's in favor of amnestying the Dreamers.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if it's a weather vane. It could just be he's just doing this now, so later on he could do something else. But I don't know. This is just another notch in the shitty bed.
It's disappointing, but here's the thing with Trump. And this sounds bad, and maybe to some extent it is, but it is what it is. As ESP would like to say, nothing you can do here. What Trump says often doesn't mean shit.
Bugged civic nationalism mechanics.
You basically have Trump has very little filter between his mind and his fucking mouth. And one of the things that he likes to do is he likes to this would be nice kind of thing. He likes to sort of sound like he's on your side when he's really not. Like, yes, I too am very concerned about that thing that you are concerned about. Yes, I too think that maybe it would be nice to do this or whatever. Half the time when he says that this or that is something we would do, and a lot of times he means it would be nice to do. And more often than not, you got to kind of interpret what Trump says through the prism of everything else Trump says.
Oh, this is hilarious because I remember we were doing that during the election, but it was like, oh, he's hiding his power level, and now it's it's now the opposite direction.
Well, no, I don't know that. Look. Here's how I've always said on immigration. Like, the first priority is securing the border. Okay? We can have a talk about what the fuck you do with the illegals that are here already after that's done. But the problem Reagan did was he was like, well, I'll give the amnesty to these people and then we'll secure the border wall. No. First, you stop the bleeding. Then we can deal with the rest of these. Now, personally, I say we send them back. In fact, I'm beginning to lean towards just send back their fucking heads. But the point is, lay the fucking wall down, and then we'll talk about that. All right?
Speaking of the wall, all right, I don't know. I've heard this isn't that big of a deal, but I've also heard that it's another weather vane pointing in the wrong direction, that the wall has like funding issues at like Congress.
Well, of course, the wall has funding issues in Congress. Everything's going to have funding issues in Congress.
I mean, like it's like so much so that it might not get built, or it might be.
Well, it might. We might be all dead tomorrow. Okay, I mean, we might. I might have an aneurysm before this live stream happens. All right, don't get too caught up in things you can't control. Like, yes, it's concerning. I am concerned about these things, but I refuse to get my proverbial panties in a fucking knot until there's more reason to. And I mean, look, right now, and I think this is exactly what he should do. Trump could send fucking National Guards down to the damn border right now. And hey, I don't know, maybe the Army Corps of Engineers while you're fucking down there lay some bricks down. I don't know. But he might be trying to get it through Congress, and then he just fucking circumvents it. I mean, didn't Obama teach us the president can do whatever the fuck he wants? I mean,
yeah, we're coming up with all these great ways to get what we want, and Trump hasn't.
Well, and notice Trump has a habit of he will give a little bit to the other side, and then he will draw a line that he will not go past. Okay, I'll fire Mike Flynn because he lied to Pence when I asked him about Russia, but I'm going to draw the line, and this goes no further than that.
I think he was also lobbying for Turkey when he wasn't supposed to.
But the point is, look, people had unrealistic expectations of what Trump was going to be. Trump is not the answer in the long term. If he can buy us time, buy us breathing room and the ability to maneuver, if he can slow the invasion from a flood into a trickle, then we're doing much better than we were 6 months ago, and way better than we would be under Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting any enabling acts, seriously, but I was expecting, at least civic nationalism, like Virginia dares to yourself, but now it's sort of like.
Yeah, but one of the things is, on the end of the right we're at, sometimes we kind of forget how radical we are compared to normies. VDARE is like incredibly. I mean, it's moderate by our standards. It is way the hell out there compared to normie standards. So, like Black James was saying, I think everybody needs to calm down a little bit and get realistic. You were never going to get everything you wanted out of Trump. But if he delivers half the stuff he promised, we're doing really good. We're doing way better than we would have been if literally anybody else had won this election.
I mean, look, Trump has already done more to push this country in the right direction than I would say the last Republican president did in 8 years.
What if it's just a last hurrah before we get, the liberal singularity or signalarity in 2016? Or not?
And what if there's a massive earthquake and we all slide into the ocean tomorrow?
No, this is the thing. Trump doesn't deliver on like some critical issues. I don't see how he's going to get reelected.
Let me white pill you here for a second.
Looking into a crystal ball here.
Let me white pill you here for a second. And I'm going to use a nerd reference, but I'm going to not use Harry Potter or Star Wars because I'm not a leftist. The Avengers movie, that speech where Stark says to Loki, he goes, "There's not really a scenario where you win here. There are scenarios where maybe we don't win, but there's nothing where you win." That's what it is with the left. There is no scenario where the left wins. Okay? There's scenarios where it's rougher on us and there's more cleanup before maybe a civilization is rebuilt. But there is not going to be the left's not going to get their way. The globalists aren't going to get their way. They're just not. It's not going to work. It's just simply not. And eventually, they're going to hang. The question is how orderly that's going to be. The question is how painful that's going to be. But no, they're not going to win. Okay, and the Democrats are in a really bad position right now.
Oh, right? Yes.
They're in a very, I didn't even get a chance to talk about this, but earlier this week, one of them, some congressman or senator or some shit, I don't even remember off the top of my head, but somebody that Trump appointed to some position, we had to have a special election to find a replacement. And the Republicans, being the disorganized dumbasses they are right now, ran 11 motherfuckers. And the Democrats ran 1. And they spent 5 times as much money. And they got that guy to a plurality, but not a majority. So now we have to have a runoff election between him and the next person. So basically, they spent 5 times as much money, not to win, but to just fucking stay in the game on this one little election. And they're running around like this is an indictment of Trump's presidency. And holy crap, look at this amazing victory we have. Because those motherfuckers are that thirsty right now. All right?
Yeah, I mean, 2 things. First, it's really hard to underestimate just how much the Democrats got BTFO'd in the election of 2016, and not just with the presidency. Every election on every level around this country, there were 1 or 2 minor bright spots for them. They got their asses kicked in this election. Second, where the hell is their backbench? I don't see anybody who is a rising star in that party. I could see some people in the Republican Party, but I can't see anybody in the Democratic Party who is ready to rise up and be sort of the next generation of presidential candidates. And third, to be real honest, if Trump did absolutely nothing in the White House for the next 8 years, except put Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court and put whoever he's going to put on the court after Ruth Bader Ginsburg kicks, which she's going to do soon, because let's be honest, she looks like she drank from the wrong cup in an Indiana Jones movie. Right? She's looking like the Crypt Keeper's chronically ill older sister these days. Then, as far as I'm concerned, the Trump presidency would still be a success.
Yeah, look, I mean, don't get me wrong. I want nothing more than for Trump to build that wall and decorate it with Hillary Clinton's skull, okay? I want that to happen. I want the wall to get built. I still think it's going to get built. The one thing that I really am kind of upset that I'm beginning to think he won't do, and I'm not 100% on this, is he's going to let Hillary off the hook. And I think that's a major mistake because, as I've articulated here many times before, I call it the Gerald Ford syndrome. We have to hold our leaders accountable. Either they will pay for their sins, or we as a nation will pay for it much later with much interest. Now,
I heard this. I don't know if there's much veracity to it, but supposedly Obama's in Tahiti, and it's a non-U.S. extradition country. Some people have been kicking that around that like there are actually elements in the leadership of the left that are shitting themselves over Trump being in office.
well, here's the other thing you have to remember. Trump came in office, and half the fucking government was openly fantasizing about assassinating him, all right? Imagine if you took over a company and half the fucking employees were openly talking about wanting to put poison in your goddamn coffee. Your first priority might be, I need to clean out my employee list here. Give the guy some time to maybe try and put his men in position.
Yeah, let's not
if
forget.
He is going to arrest Hillary Clinton, for example, and I really think he should. Don't get me wrong. I think he absolutely should. But he damn well better make sure enough of his men that he can trust are in the right fucking positions before he makes a move.
And what did you share in the chat? It seemed, what am I looking at?
It's don't post that anywhere respectable. It's awful.
What is
What
this?
happened now?
It's the Trump tranny.
The Trump tranny.
Oh God.
What?
Well,
Should
I mean,
be
it's
a-
technically safe for work. I'll give you that much. But
Is this good or bad?
Now
Well,
that's implicit.
how do you like to spend your Saturday nights?
I was going to say it's pretty implicit. I don't.
But yeah, let's not forget.
So wait, which
Putin
one of the
did-
TRS guys is this?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I kid.
no, that's just the TRS guy's girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Let's not forget, Erdogan's been in power for what, 10 years now, and he's just now really consolidating his hold on power and getting his enemies out. And that's by doing things that Trump will never be able to do. Putin was not as powerful as he is now in his first couple years in office. This stuff does take a while, and it will. And,
Here's the thing.
everybody needs to calm down. It's been 3 months. Like I was saying earlier, I know it's hard to remember way back when Barack Obama was president because it seems like 1,000 years. That's what seems like happened 6,000 years ago. But he really has only been in office 3 months. His 100 days isn't even over. Be a little patient here.
I like that angle. I like that angle a lot.
Yeah, here's the thing. I get your concern. I'm concerned too. But I think Trump is owed just a touch of the benefit of the doubt, particularly given the situation he stepped into and the probably a lot of behind the scenes shit he needs to accomplish before he can do anything too visibly.
we're not saying go like what the Democrats do with Barack Obama, but at least give him at least a year or at least
Yeah,
2 years.
I'm not saying be a Bill Mitchell style dick rider here. I'm just saying like have a little faith about this. And
I dropped Obama when I realized he was still blowing up brown people in Afghanistan.
voice your concerns, make them clear. Feel free to tweet at the guy. Lord knows he's on Twitter all the time. Maybe he'll say it, but make your concerns clear and all, and keep an eye to 2018. If you're not involved with your local Republican Party, you should be, and keep an eye out for 2018. 2018 is going to be a big deal on solidifying this. Guys like Paul Ryan, maybe we can get them out of there, that kind of thing. So yeah, stay involved and voice your concerns, but also, like Nancy Dem said, it's been 3 months. Has it even been 100 days yet?
Nope, not yet.
I mean, let's. Like I said, there's the two extremes of the panicky guy who, as Auntie Dem says, act like he was a fucking 15-year-old on his first breakup, and there's the dick riding Bill Mitchells. There's a nice middle ground in between there, and that's where you want to find yourself.
Well,
be concerned, but don't despair.
Yeah, we'll see how
Remember, there's a reason despair is a sin.
I don't know the reason. This is new to me. I've never heard despair being a sin.
Oh yeah, despair is one of the 7 deadly sins, and there's a reason. You giving up. It will cause you to give up before, well, ever. But it's you self-defeating. And again, remember, if nothing else, people who want to take here's why. Because people who want to take their ball and go home right now, who do you think is going to pick that ball up? Is it going to be people who are going to be further right than you? Or is it going to be either a bunch of SJWs or a bunch of conservatives? And you'll end up getting even less of what you want.
One of the mistakes the religious right made in the 80s, and I'm hardly on board with the religious right politically 100%, but one of the mistakes they made in the 80s was they worked really, really hard to get Ronald Reagan elected and just assumed that manna from heaven was going to pour down, that there was going to be this massive top-down change. And there was a period where they were pretty disappointed. And to their credit, they picked themselves back up and said, okay, well, obviously this is going to take a lot more than just getting Ronald Reagan elected. And that's why they were the force they were in the 80s and 90s. But yeah, you can't just Trump's in office, and that's great, and it's an amazing thing that was accomplished. But that's not the end there. That's just the beginning. And even if he doesn't turn out to be everything he said he was, again, there's 2018 to get better guys under him. There's the mere fact he has changed the rules. The mere fact that a guy saying the things he said got to the position he got to, that's a godsend right there.
Oh, I just realized something. We haven't had a recession in a long time. Like, I've read that according to the business cycle, we should have had one recently.
Yes, they're roughly a 7-year cycle.
Yeah, and so I'm wondering it depends how. Of course, it depends on the severity of the recession, which it might not be that bad. Well, actually,
but here's the thing:
because of how big the Trump gain was during, it might seem
we
bad.
kind of never got out of the last recession, though. That's sort of what screws this up a bit. I mean, yeah, maybe we're due for another hit, but that's not. It's roughly a 7-year cycle. But when you have, when you're sort of stuck in the last one, we're almost due for a boom now. I mean, we never got out of the 2008 recession. Not really. Not in any meaningful way. I mean, we are still in the recession. We are now starting to get out of it a little bit. And again, yeah, I don't know. I could wake up tomorrow and the dollar's fucking collapsed and we're all trading canned foods and bullets. I don't know. I've got quite a few of both right now, so I'm okay. I
can't tell like where it would come from.
I mean, also, you know what? There's a lot of. I've made my peace with God, and there's nothing else I can do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you do what you can, but after a while, the whole Zen thing about float like a leaf on the river of life is not a piece of advice. It's telling you what's going to happen. I mean, again, I don't know how many people here are old enough to really remember 9/11, but that, I remember in the run up to Y2K, I knew people who literally, packed food and guns into a cabin in the woods and sat there on New Year's Eve 2000 waiting for the world to end. And me, if you look at film of Times Square, I'm one of the little dots down there in Times Square on New Year's Eve Y2K. And, a year and a half later, on a random Tuesday in the middle of September, 9/11 happens, and suddenly we're at war, and suddenly the world has changed, and nobody saw it coming out of anywhere. You really don't know what's going to happen. We can think, we can guess, we can prepare, but after a certain point, what's going to happen is what's going to happen. And if any of us really were able to predict that with any reliability, we'd be living in a penthouse, in Manhattan instead of here talking to each other on the Skypes there.
Yeah. Honestly, it's funny you bring up 9/11. I was a senior in high school, and one of the teachers ran into our room all panicky and said, and I quote, because I'll never forget her quote, "You have to turn on the TV because," once again, I quote, "the Pentagon's been destroyed and New York is being bombed."
If only.
So, honestly, when I watched the news, I was like, well, that's not as bad as I was originally led to believe. Because you say the New York's being bombed. I pictured like waves of planes like just coming through. Just fucking.
New York again becomes a red state.
But yeah, that's, like I said, I mean, be concerned, but don't despair.
Yeah. The black pill is a suppository after all.
there's a, in day-to-day life, you should take what I like to call the gray pill. And that's the halfway point between the two. All right.
Is it a nootropic? I might actually take that then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not gonna. I could, spittle off about, the chat's topics are like race mix, the merits of race mixing, which I'd argue are none, because I don't know. The effects of it are just like, it just doesn't seem like a good idea going into it. I mean,
well, here's where I stand on the idea of it, and I don't want to get too caught up in it, but like, I don't think it's a big deal because it doesn't naturally happen that often. I mean, generally speaking, most human beings have tribal instincts, and they're not.
I'd like to make a quick correction. It doesn't happen often voluntarily.
Well, yes. I mean, generally, in times of peace, let me put it that way, it doesn't happen very often. The handful of times it does, again, in times of peace, are statistical outliers, and I don't think are a particularly big damn deal. Most people want to be with their own kind, and I'm generally of the mindset where I would just prefer people be allowed to associate as they see fit, and that's usually going to work out pretty good. That's basically my mindset on it. Most people have natural tribal instincts and want to mate with their own kind. The handful of times it's going to not happen that way, I don't see as a big damn deal.
Yep, that's that. Yep, just spittle off on these little issues. I won't keep anyone's time. So thanks for having me on.
Yep.
All right. See ya.
Take care. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this show, which has been.
What you mean? A 4-hour live stream isn't enough for you?
I got church in the morning too, and holy, this was quite the interesting show. Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, anybody got any closing thoughts?
I probably have another poem around somewhere, but I forgot where I put it.
All right.
Remember, folks, the more right-wing you are, the more right you are, so make sure you're right with Christ.
Absolutely. Deus Volt.
Yeah. And if you enjoy the show, check out the sponsor, Race Riot Apparel, because checking out the sponsor helps me out. And, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And, again, if you enjoy the show, we, tips are greatly appreciated. I might take some of that and get some preparation H for Undertow for the butthurt. And
send me Bitcoin.
Yeah, send Auntie Damn your Bitcoin and all that good stuff. Thanks a lot, folks. That's all we got for tonight. Go to church in the morning. Bechtloff out.